Well, tonight's race really is a who's who of cycling in terms of past winners. You've got some incredible names in there. Danny King, Joanna Rosa, Lizzie Armistead. All these girls have gone on to Olympic standard. They've done some phenomenal things. Eileen Rowe there won it twice before. She's back trying to defend her title tonight. They are all so up for this race. So we're looking forward to seeing what happens tonight. Now we've got loads to bring you tonight. We've got the women's race followed by the podium, the men's race followed by the podium. We have got guests with us. We're going to talk you through what is going on step by step, show you all tonight's action. Hopefully it's going to be fast, it's going to be furious, it's going to be thoroughly enjoyable. And we've got plenty to get through, so let's start right now. So I've been joined by cycling journalist. We've got Rebecca Charlton here. Rebecca, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Bex.
Now, welcome to Sheffield. What is it about this race that just makes it so exciting?
Well, we see a lot of racing here in Sheffield, and there's so much support for the local men and women that are racing tonight, but we can't get away from the fact that it's all about that championship title. It's that white jersey with the championship bands. You get to wear it for a year. When you're in your discipline, you stand out and everyone knows you're the champion, and we've just seen the list of who's who there. You want to join it?
You really do, don't you? It does look phenomenal. Now, this is great for the city of Sheffield as well to have this here. What does it mean? I mean, the crowds and the atmosphere out here is really starting to build. People are genuinely excited about this one.
They really are, and I think when we've walked around earlier, we've met some of the locals. There's people that cycle themselves, there's people that are huge fans, and actually people that have never seen this type of racing before. And I get so excited when we get to come and we see the Crip Champs, as everyone calls it, or the Circuit Championships, because with your typical road race, it's quite a long day. You might queue up, actually see someone fly past, but we see them lap after lap. It's so crowd friendly.
Now we're going to talk about the course actually. If you could talk us through this, what the riders are actually facing tonight. How's it looking?
It's an interesting one tonight. It's slightly less technical than we've perhaps seen in the last 2 years, but that by no means means it's an easy circuit tonight. I've been walking around and having a look at the bottom of the circuit where we've got quite a wide dual carriageway road, and it's going to be so fast on that straight bit of road. And the thing to look at there is actually when they turn onto the cobbles, there's a big old drag and everyone's going to be fighting for a line there. And the other thing to mention is the weather. Fortunately,
yeah, it's started to rain. What's happened?
The rain has started to fall down, and I've chatted to a few people before we came on air, and they're actually looking at tyre pressures now, so it does look like some of those bottom corners could be a little bit treacherous.
Well, who is it going to suit tonight?
Well, we've got such an impressive field tonight, which we'll go on to, of course, talk about in a minute. But I think, obviously, punchy, technically competent riders are gonna really thrive here. You've got your sprinters, but there are so many sprinters in this bunch. People that have come from track and road and criterion specialists as well. So it will be wide open. And I noticed looking down the field tonight, it's not like you've got people making up the numbers. It's super competitive.
Yeah, it seems that. I'm walking around though, everyone's just got such a buzz for this course, this race. They're so excited for it.
They really are, and I think even some of the riders that have not had the best preparation have come in saying, I can't wait to get stuck into tonight, but some huge contenders.
Well, there certainly are some massive contenders out in the fields tonight. One person who actually, well, this course she's defending champion, she's back again, Eileen Rowe. I did manage to catch up with her earlier. Welcome back. You are defending champion. Does that add a little bit of pressure on tonight?
It does, yep. I've been in this position before, and unfortunately I have not retained my title, so we'll see if we can make amends for that.
And how are you feeling just in general about the race tonight, being back in Sheffield?
Yeah, I've raced here before at the British Champs and came second, so I had positive memories from here. It was a good race. It's a good circuit. It is a tough wearing down circuit, and like I'm hoping that it rains, so I can feel a little bit of spits coming down now, so hopefully my prayers have been answered.
Is this Scottish blood? Why do you want it to rain so much?
There's not a lot of people that can corner or race in the rain, so they already are a bit beaten down before the race even starts because of the weather. So I really like racing in the rain. It's like what happens in Scotland. You go out and you race in the rain or you ride in the rain. There is no real excuses. So
on that start line, are you going to be nervous?
I will be nervous. I've got number 1 on my back, so I think quite a lot of people will be looking towards this team. It is a strong team. We have quite a few potential riders that could win the race. So yeah, I will be nervous.
Well, you just mentioned your team there. You do have a really strong team behind you. Have you talked tactics yet? Who's going to take it out? Anything like that? Any secrets?
No, there isn't any. team tactics been spoken yet, so I think we have a few options that we can line up during the race, so it's not all just about me. There are other options there, so that's still to be spoken about.
And is there any part of the course that you are slightly nervous of, looking forward to, think that you can make a gain on a certain section of a course?
I think it'll probably just be the cobbled hill that is the defining factor in the course, that you come into it from a left-hand corner with speed, and if that is wet then it will be a little bit dodgy going around that area, and it is quite a drag, and like I said before, it is a wearing down process of a climb, and it's a really long finishing straight as well. I made that mistake before, gone too early, so that's the bit that will be I think the most detrimental effect on the bunch.
Well, Eileen, good luck for the race tonight.
Thank you very much.
Well, somebody else who is one to watch tonight is Katie Archibald. She's Eileen's teammate, and I managed to catch up with her earlier, so let's find out what she had to say. Feeling about tonight's race?
Pretty nervous, but I guess it's that confusing sensation in your stomach of what's nerves and what's excitement, so I'm sure once the gun goes we'll just be ready to get stuck in.
Now, you are Olympic champion on the track. People say this course is fairly similar to a track style.
Oh, really?
How do you feel about that?
Is it the cobbled climb that made them think that? Yeah, no, I guess any criterium race is always going to be a good jumping pad for track riders, because it'll be under an hour, fast-paced, tight corners and things, like lots of acceleration, so that kind of suits our riding style, what we train for. So yeah, I can't deny that there's an advantage there, but it's the hugely technical elements that don't have the same crossover of the tactics of track racing, so it is kind of anybody's game, really.
Now, you've got a good team behind you tonight. Have you discussed how you're going to race this, tactics, anything like that?
Yeah, well, we've got the current national champion in our team, so it's a bit of an obvious card, really. But there's no hiding it. If you're the strongest and the smartest, that's how you win. And I think we're going in with a squad that can prove that.
And are you looking forward to particularly any aspects within the course tonight? Is there anything that you might be able to gain an advantage of? Any corners, any straights, anything like that?
I think because, like I say, it is a technical course, I think we can really capitalise on that with Eileen. She's the only sort of madman here that's praying for rain, and I can just feel it sort of lightly touching us now.
So you don't want the rain tonight?
I'm okay without rain, thank you. Yeah, no, it's an odd mindset, the kind of person that wants rain, because it's enjoying other people's suffering, I reckon. It doesn't suit my skill set, the rain. I can handle it fine, but it would really play in nicely for Eileen, and hopefully we can, like I say, capitalise on that.
Well, Katie, good luck for tonight's race. Go and get yourself ready.
Thanks, thank you.
Well, let's bring Rebecca back in. We've just heard from Katie and Eileen there. Who else, though, is there to watch tonight? Because they're all from one team. There's plenty of ladies racing tonight.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting point to make, is there's a really high chance, as we've just heard, that Team WNT could be taking a jersey home, but they're both going to be very marked riders there for that reason. And one rider I'd like to mention first is Eleanor Barker, because as we've talked about teammates, of course, she's on Matrix Fitness, not WNT, but...
She here by herself tonight?
She is by herself in terms of not having teammates, but she knows Katie Archibald tremendously well from the Team Pursuit set up on the track, of course, both of them reigning Olympic champions. And when you look at that, there's a lot of women in this field that will know how each other's mind works, how they're going to play it tactically, and that makes for some very interesting racing. But basically, when you look at Eleanor Barker, what's interesting for anyone that's not followed her switch to being on the road this year, she's by no means left the track behind, but she's come in and she's been performing at UCI level on the road as well, which is just phenomenal to make that transition back and forth.
So the mind games tonight is another one that's quite interesting.
It really could be, and for Eleanor, she punctured in the Nationals and then had amazing solo attack and then got brought back, so I think she's going to have a fire in the belly. But I've scribbled down a few more names here. Rebecca Durrell from Drops, I think, is definitely one to watch. She's been phenomenal throughout this series, as has Team On Form. They're a young development squad for under 23 and juniors. Sian Botley, Amy Hill's one to mention, and of course Grace Garner of Wiggle High Five as well.
This sounds like a really open field. You could be picking any one of those.
It's very
tonight.
hard to predict tonight, it really is.
If I pushed you, would you be able to tell me one name? A winner?
It's going to be a very, very close call tonight, Becky.
It certainly is. Well, you can see that the riders, they are getting themselves ready now, heading back to the race. You are going to commentate on tonight's race for us, Rebecca. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to let you go back, go and get ready. Enjoy the race. We are going to watch all the action. To take through it, here is Declan Quigley.
Riders on the start line. ready and waiting, all anxious and all looking forward to the next 50 minutes and 5 laps of furious racing action around this tight, technical, demanding circuit. The weather conditions, well, they haven't quite made up their mind. There are cobbles, there are technical corners, there are difficulties aplenty. There are also champion stripes on offer at the end of this tough day of racing. So the question is, what sort of conditions will be presented to the riders today? Eileen Rowe is present, and as we've seen a little earlier, very much looking forward to the potential for a little bit of rain. Will that happen? Will that eventuate for her? Remains to be seen. Riders crowding towards the front. They aren't gridded and as such are presented in any specific position to give them any advantage, but you can be sure that the Team WNT riders will gravitate towards the 6 riders from that team. And Rebecca's alongside me to run the rule over the riders throughout this evening of racing. The WNT riders deep in conversation with another one of the pre-event favourites. Just see Eileen Rowe pick her out in the centre, and Eleanor Barker just having a chat with the reigning champion. All seems very relaxed at the moment, Rebecca. They seem to be getting on well. How long will that last?
That's a very good point, Declan. I think the thing that we didn't quite get to talking to earlier in the studio is that crit racing, circuit racing, for anyone that's only watching for the first time tonight, it's just on from the gun, isn't it? It's fast, it's furious, it's technical, and it really does lead to such exciting racing. They might look pretty chilled now, but that neutralised zone is very rarely neutral.
Yeah, we got 1 lap of neutralised, so there'll be a sighting lap. The riders, of course, have had a pretty good look at the circuit at this moment. Most of their warm-up has been done on the rollers or on the turbo trainers, and once they got the legs nicely tuned up, they went out for a good look at this circuit, and plenty of laps have been done, and it's well worth doing those laps because this is a demanding circuit. Many of the riders, of course, will be very familiar with this circuit, having raced here for several years. 7th year of racing around this particular circuit here in Sheffield?
That's the thing, we've seen this race and this circuit used come back to Sheffield, as you mentioned, year on year, and so there are a lot of riders that will be very familiar with it. Equally, some people coming in today saying actually it's an unknown till they've been out and done some warm-up laps, and it is an interesting one, and I do hope that this rain holds off, although Eileen Rowe hoping it rains.
Do you think that was a certain amount of trying to talk herself up? She seems so relaxed. She's always so animated, always chatting, really popular figure in the bunch, and just has a real character, a real personality. She has blossomed, I think, with these champion stripes over the last couple of years. Remarkable statistics for this woman from 27 years of age, and she's been on the podium, indeed in the first 2 positions in each of the last 5 years, including those 2 championship successes in 2 of the last 3 years. So remarkable performance, and it's only right and fitting and proper that it's Eileen Rowe that is called first. So they are calling the riders forward, and well, as befits their status in the race. Rowe will be alone at the front for a little while, but will that prevail throughout the race? I think she'll be looking for a sprint finish at the end.
Yeah, if it comes down to a sprint finish, everyone together, Eileen will be very happy with that. She does look calm and chilled, as you say, at the moment. Katie Archibald, MBE, just rolling up beside her teammate. As I mentioned, there'll be a lot of eyes on them, very marked riders, but the technical savviness with these riders is just unreal. They always seem to be 1 step ahead, psychologically, mentally, knowing exactly what they want to do, and Eileen's targeted so many of these now.
Wow. Eileen Rowe finds herself the meat in a golden sandwich there, isn't it? Because 2 gold medal winners from the Rio Olympics, team pursuit winners for Britain, 2 MBE holders, Eleanor Barker on the left of Eileen Rowe, and on the right Katie Archibald. And the dynamic, I think, between the WNT riders is going to be fascinating. Will team tactics come into play? I mean, that's the question. I mean, you've got 6 riders, many of that team believe that they can actually win championship stripes themselves. I mean, will they race for each other? Will they race against each other?
It's a really good question, and I think the main thing to look at is a team wants to go away with this jersey. That's what we need to remember, is a win, a jersey tonight, that'll be the goal for WNT. Interestingly, I was catching up with the guys before they'd had the team meeting, but they're obviously very well aware of the strength and depth they've got in this team and the chances they've got to go for it. You certainly won't see teammates like WNT chasing each other down, but I don't know specifically where they...
Are they benign team tactics as we see the riders setting off now? They're not racing. This is the neutralised lap. We've got 54 riders on the start sheet. A couple of non-starters we should run through. Sandra Mackay of Veloshills Interbike Racing Team. Steph Clayton from the Mammoth Lifestyle Racing Team is a non-starter, and a couple of riders from Cycling Team On Form haven't made it to Sheffield this evening. Anna Henderson and Shan Botley. Fionn James and Melissa Greaves also non-starters, but the rest of the entry list, as published on the British Cycling website, is as published and as issued. And the WNT squad gravitating towards the front. On the left, the orange colours with those check stripes down the middle of the Ford EcoBoost. They also have come with numbers. Drops as well is another team that we'll be looking for. So much of the talk, the pre-race talk, has been about WNT, but those squads are strong, and there are many other strong squads in there.
Yeah, of course, and we didn't quite get to talking through all of the list of contenders tonight, and as you've mentioned, drops. But I also want to mention Nikki Juniper of Ford EcoBoost, because she obviously won the championships the previous year before Eileen took the title back, and she's had a really difficult season. A crash in the Women's National Series saw her come down and break her collarbone. She recovered, as we expected her to, very quickly, came back, won, got on the podium again a couple of weeks later, phenomenal comeback, and then she got an infection in the plate, had to have it removed, more surgery. So I wanted to give a shout out to her, because she'd normally be coming here to represent tonight, so it's very sad not to see her back. Yeah,
the preeminent force in British women's road racing in 2016. Nikki Juniper, non-starter tonight, unfortunately for her, but she has sent her Ford EcoBoost teammates out to do battle, and they are a strong squad indeed. Now the smile is gone from Eileen Rowe. It's down to business now, isn't it? The motorcycle is controlling the pace. It's getting a little bit physical in there as the riders jockey for position, because to a certain extent circuit racing is an elimination race from the back as much as it is about the attacking off the front.
It certainly is. A neutral zone is rarely neutral, because you want to be positioned, which is why you see the riders jostling behind the vehicle to get to the front. If you're caught at the back, when the pace starts, when the race is on, it's the last place you want to be.
Yeah, I picked out Grace Garner there. We'll watch out for her as well, representing Wiggle High Five. The former star of junior and youth racing has really blossomed into senior racing and is an elite professional at continental level racing. We now have a bicycle racing underway. The British Circuit Race Championship is underway. 50 minutes plus 5 laps. That's the way it works. It's a cagey start now, so we see Grace Garner just making her way up towards the front, but Team WNT, as might be expected, are trying to control things on the front. It looks like the riders are minded to have another little sighting lap. We're running downhill here, and when the racing really gets going proper, you pick up a lot of pace through this fast left-hander.
Yeah, having a close look at it earlier, I think it's going to be tremendously fast on that section, and there's a lot of room to play with and to manoeuvre. But when the pace is on, when you turn onto that drag, it might not look too much to the eye, especially on the TV screens, but actually, as we've seen in previous editions of this championships, those sorts of climbs become so leg-sapping, and lap after lap after lap, you see the field split and whittled down, and it becomes that mental process of trying to get back into position before it really hits everybody on the rivet on that climb. And of course, it's cobbled as well, and so everybody's going to be fighting for that line.
Looks like the first rider who's going to try her chance off the front, put herself on television for a little while. Christine Robson from VC Londra, the London-based rider, representing one of the bigger and more prominent clubs in the London region, one of the more progressive clubs as well in developing young riders. VC Londra represented on the front at the moment by Christine Robson. It won't be long before riders are tempted to join her. And now we hit this cobble section as we move up onto the cobbles on Norfolk Street, through the right-hander onto Surrey Street. The road's still rising, and this is not exactly an alpine climb, but it's grippy enough, and after an hour of racing, it's going to be a tester.
That's exactly it. Grippy enough that time after time after time it just gets that little bit harder, and when people become ragged, that's when you see the moves go, because they know that's the time to attack and to really exploit the people that are getting their tired legs there.
Yeah, grippy enough, but then not that much grip on those cobbles, so it's counterintuitive in terms of the terminology, but the riders starting to stretch thin a little bit. Katie Archibald, familiar in those WNT colours, and watch out for the red helmet with the black flashing, and that's an aero helmet, so she's not too difficult to pick out. It's a silver helmet for the reigning champion Eileen Rowe. Those are perhaps the most prominent identifiers for those riders. Most of the riders for Team WNT have those aero helmets on. And it's starting to stretch thin. A couple of riders at the back already starting to feel the pinch a little bit. And look at the way the gaps have developed. And that is as much a factor of the technical nature of the circuit as the pace that's on at the front.
You want to be going into these turns positioned perfectly, because if you get your own run at it, you get your choice of lines. If you're that little bit further back, you can see how much higher the percentage of effort is to ride yourself back on out of that corner, because of course the speed goes down for people held up on those corners, and then they've got to make that acceleration, which is really leg sapping if you let yourself get caught out too many times. So the person on the front might be rolling through and the person at the back is absolutely clinging on.
Yeah, they're making the bigger effort. It's you know, it seems unfair, doesn't it? Those riders that have the greater athletic ability and the greater technical ability in the corners are actually those that have to make the least effort when when it comes to the corners. It seems unfair, but that's the way that racing works. And now we start to see a few more attacks are starting to kick in. This is a little bit more serious as Team Ford EcoBoost try to put it up to the other squads. Noticeable that Katie Archibald just wanted to own it on the front as they went down through the back end of the course, down past the Hallam Sheffield University, which of course is one of the event sponsors tonight, and very important support. And Team Ford EcoBoost putting a couple of riders well to the fore in the early stages. Winding through another lap, Eleanor Barker now starting to make her presence felt towards the front of the peloton, the Matrix fitness rider.
I touched upon the fact before that Eleanor Barker had huge disappointment without making the podium in the recent Road Nationals and Time Trial Nationals, and I was in the following car as she went down the descent towards the closing stages of the time trial, and her technical ability in holding, blowing a tyre at that sort of pace was incredible, but of course a big disappointment for her.
It was an incredible ride though.
Yeah, you can't take that away from her. But to not come away with a podium, I think, will mean that she wants to ride a very smart race, and she'd love to put that next to next to the Jersey collection. Yeah,
she's bringing big form to this, there's no doubt about it. And Eleanor Barker sitting about sixth wheel in the dark colours. She won't be anonymous in those colours, though, you can be sure of it. She's got a squad, and Eleanor Barker will be a marked woman to a certain extent. Will she be hamstrung, one wonders, by the fact that she's a solo rider, lone rider for the Matrix Fitness squad tonight?
That's a really, really interesting point. And chatting to Eileen Rowe when she took the championship title last year, she played it very, very clever to use a lead out of opposition, and it's such a savvy way to win a sprint. And actually I think we've got a few riders that we've got all eyes on today that haven't got that team support, but I think the tactical astuteness of the likes of these riders, they can win from quite a few different scenarios, so that'll be very interesting.
Yes, you eat off your rival's dinner plate before you eat off your own in cycling. That's the way it's played. No friends here, all the smiles have been complete. We're still very much, I think, in the early shadow boxing stages of this event, as riders perhaps anticipating, many of course will be anticipating the inevitable sprint finish. Will it be inevitable? I don't think so. I think we're going to see groups go off the front, but riders will be betting on that, betting on a sprint finish. They won't want to put their nose in the wind in the early stages, and then others will want to save their big effort to a little bit later on. Sometimes you want to wait until the attacking is started to make your effort, so you don't want to be the one to kick it off, burn a match. But, it's a bit later on that you actually want to feel the when riders are starting to feel the pinch a little bit, that you want to launch that attack, and that to a certain extent can lead to it being a little bit negative in the early stages. And now we see it's stretching thin. It's going to be making a few riders hurt as we work through yet another lap.
You can already see the pain on a lot of these riders' faces. It's certainly not off to the easiest of starts with that drag, and I think positioning has been so key. We'll see when they come back round on the cobbles. You can see some of the riders already looking to, as you say, keep their powder dry and go for those smoother lines. There's a little bit of a run through the middle of the cobbles where it smooths out, so you can see some of the riders with that sort of now, so are really trying to ride there. Of course, not everybody can get into that sweet spot. There's a lot of drains to avoid as well.
Yeah,
but as you see people really on the rivet, we could see it string out and people going for that just to conserve energy. And use it when it really counts.
Still a big bunch, very much compacto at the moment on the front, but you can see that a few riders are starting to feel the pinch a little bit towards the back, as Chloe Weller from the Army Cycling Race Team has the unloved position of trying to close a gap there and bring a couple of riders back on, and that's as you were saying, Rebecca, that's the difficulty. When you're at the back, you've got to slow down, you've got to make the big accelerations, and it's the accumulation of those efforts that starts to really affect. And you can be sure that the bunch will not be this big when they come to the finish, if indeed it is a group finish. Long way to go in this race. WNT very much prominent towards the front, as indeed are the orange colours of the Ford EcoBoost squad. Bit like could well be Gabby Shaw to the fore for the WNT squad, and they're putting riders on the front, controlling it. Eleanor Barker sitting in second wheel at the moment. And riders looking for that centre of the road line as they hit the cobbles. Eileen Rowe in the centre of the bunch at the moment. She hasn't made her as if they don't know.
Yeah. That's the thing, she knows exactly how to win these championships, as she's proven year on year. And I think there's so many variables as well. We see these race favourites, but there's illness, there's crashes, there's so many things that happen throughout a season that when the time's right, you can walk away with that jersey. And it's never a given, you know, and she'll know what she needs to do tonight. By all accounts, she's feeling good coming in to this race as well, so as you say, she'll be tucked in perhaps for a little while longer.
Cameras pick her out. Number 1 is the dossard on her back, as befits the reigning champion. First circuit race in a long time that she hasn't worn those champion stripes, so will she retain them? As the bunch is controlled by Team WNT on the front. And look at the devastation that's caused at the back of the field, as riders having to make big efforts to get back into contention.
You made a spot of the Team Army Racing's Chloe Weller earlier, and I must note she's a phenomenal endurance rider. She can just sit like a metronome on the front of the bunch and really churn out those miles. But what's interesting is you've got some of the riders at the head of the race that have come from a more track-based and crit-based specific programme, and it's just that ability to attack, and just keep hurting the field and keep whittling it down.
Yes, a lot has been made of the fact that this particular type of racing really suits the characteristics, the physical, athletic characteristics that Katie Archibald is bringing to bike racing. It's relatively short, very much an aerobic event, but in cycling terms, cycling road terms, it's about as short as it gets at just under an hour of racing. So it's ideal for a woman who's trained, whose skills have been honed on the track.
It really is. You see a lot of riders crossing over between crit racing and track racing, and if you look at Katie's credentials in terms of the sprints and the points that she goes for to be consistently overall for something like the Omnium, it translates to her just going and going and going. Ford EcoBoost Charmaine Porter on the front here. Be interesting to see what team tactics they employ. It's catching up with them earlier, and be interesting to see what they've got in the bag tonight.
So Gabby Shaw's done great work on the front of the peloton. Eleanor Barker staying there or thereabouts as well.
See Jo Tinley, Ford EcoBoost in fourth wheel there. An incredible amount of experience that she brings to these races. I've known Jo for a very long time, and she's just raced year on year on year, bringing just so much experience and able to mentor younger riders as well.
Looks like Amy Gornall has hit the front of the bunch. Well to the fore. And that's the right place to be. As I mentioned earlier, it can be very much an elimination race from the back. And look at the way that there's a little bit of a gap there, just emerging between Gabriella Shaw, sitting third wheel as they went through. Katie Archibald back in the middle of the bunch, seemingly unconcerned at the moment, but there are plenty of other riders whose body language suggests that this is a bigger effort for them than it is for the reigning Olympic champion.
You can see the riders from Team On Form racing here, and we must note them because they've been so consistent throughout this series, and I think they perhaps get talked about a little less than some of the other teams. But they're a development team, they have a lot of under 23 and junior riders coming through, and they're never afraid to get on the front, to get those lone attacks, to get in the breakaways, and they've really animated the racing this season.
Yeah, Amy Hill racing for Cycle Team on form, third in this event back in 2013, so she knows exactly what she needs to do to get a medal. Can those elusive champion stripes be destined for a rider from the unformed squad? Well, here we have a little bit of a gap emerging, and inevitably it's Team WNT that want to try and close it down. Brawley's up at the finish line, and just stick the thumb out the window. I can confirm that there's a little bit of drizzle there. You don't see it on the lens, not quite picking it out, but that I think will be causing a little bit of concern among the riders, especially as they run through that right-hander on the cobbles. To their advantage, I suppose, it's running up straight, and I think a rider might have just gone down. I heard a little bit of a crash behind, so I wonder if a rider at the back of the field hasn't come to grief there. I think I just caught a sight that they were getting back on their bikes, so fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed that no one's come off too badly. It's one of those things that when you get a slight bit of rain on a train like this, especially on the cobbles, it can become way more slippery than if it was actually saturated or dry. So it's that horrible no man's land. And a lot of the riders were looking at tyre pressure and tyre choice before, because it's that question mark, that unknown. Is the rain going to come down? Are we going to be okay? Is it going to stay dry? And it's just working out that you've kind of got the right setup in case it gets to that sort of middle ground of really slippery roads. And we saw this with the champs a couple of years back, where it was literally like an ice skating rink. Having a recce of the course, it doesn't look like it lends itself quite that badly, but there is that bottom corner that goes from the tarmac onto the cobbles, and I think that the riders may have to back off a little bit down there if it really does start to get very slippery.
Looks like Alicia Speak for the Cycle Team on form has just made a little bit of a break, has established a small advantage out front, small chase group behind, couple of riders from the unformed squad. Nicely timed effort, really. With the rain starting to fall, it's, I think, well worth developing a situation where the riders are coming across to you rather than you trying to close the gap, make those extra efforts, perhaps take an extra risk in those rainy conditions. Much better to try and control it. And interesting that the Team WNT spread wide across the road. The bunch not minded to chase this one for a while, so nice move, nicely timed by the Cycle Team on form squad.
Very nice timing there, because as you've said, they've got that free run into taking the exact line they want, and they can back off that tiny bit, not having to go too hard if it is wet. But it looks like the hoods and brollies are going down a little bit, so hopefully it's going to dry out.
Yes, for the sake of the riders. And look at who it is that's going to close the gap here. Katie Archibald causes consternation in the bunch behind as she takes it and look. Oh, and that was a big moment for Katie Archibald. Just pulled a foot out, I think, in the effort as well, and had to try and clip back in. And that right-hander, for all that it's not particularly quick in relative terms, those cobbles are absolutely treacherous. And Katie Archibald was about to just skip across that gap nonchalantly, you might say, but that has softened her cough a little bit, and she's back in amongst the bunch. She'll have to redouble her efforts. And how much will that have affected her confidence on the cobbles?
I think it's all about testing the water, actually, pardon the pun. I think they're going to come through on these laps where it started to get a little bit saturated with the rain and think, okay, can I push it, can I not? And I think if you look at the look on her face there, she was sort of thinking, am I going to get away with this? And then, of course, she pulled her foot out, so now she'll probably back off that little bit.
Find the limit by exceeding it.
I think so. But I think riders won't, of this calibre probably won't back off too much unless they're absolutely sure it's going to come a cropper.
Well, that was a serious moment for one of the pre-event favourites, but still a wonderful job being done by Alicia Speak and Amy Hill. It is up front, the two riders from the cycling team on form squad.
What I've noticed throughout the season, Declan, is that the on-form team, they form such a neat breakaway group. We've quite often seen two of their riders go off together, and the smoothness at which they sort of get away and stay away, it's been very impressive.
This is Alicia Speak on the front with the blue helmet. Her teammate just inner wheel and doing great work at the moment is the rider who was third back in 2013, Amy Hill. And Amy Hill is being presented into a solid situation at the moment by her teammate. Just a couple of bike lengths gap between them as they run through that fast left-hander. That is deceptively quick. I don't think the TV pictures really demonstrate just how fast this is.
It doesn't. And I think when Katie had that moment there pulling her foot out, it's quite hard to see actually what she's contending with, but it is very tight.
Yeah, back to the cobbles now, and it is Team WNT on the front. The Cowbells roar this large and appreciative crowd here in Sheffield tonight as they race up the cobbles. up Norfolk Street into Surrey Street, then make the left into Pinston Street as they go past the imposing figure of the Sheffield Town Hall, built way back in 1891. And what a wonderful site it is, what a wonderful backdrop it makes to this National Circuit Race Championship course here in Sheffield. 1.4 kilometres for the riders as they make their way back onto that finishing straight. The left-hander comes with what, about 150 metres remaining. Lead through that left-hander at the end. They're probably in a pretty good position. Still perhaps an opportunity for one rider or two riders to come past, but that will be hotly contested, the position into that final left-hander. These two riders up front doing a solid job.
They really are, and we can see the perspective in our commentary position, can't we, that there's actually quite a sizable gap there now, and you've got the bunch looking at each other saying, right, who's going to chase this? Of course, WNT have a huge interest in making sure they're controlling this and that it doesn't stay away, as we can just see Ford EcoBoost attacking to the left of our TV screens. But this is a very, very smooth break, working very well together. You can see on the turns there's a little bit of gapping going on, but then, you know, it doesn't look to be causing them too many problems. You see Eleanor Barker just swing off there saying, right, I'm going to sit tight for a little bit longer. Yeah,
no panic from the bunch behind at the moment. They're willing to give these riders a little bit of rope, and at the moment it's just a little bit of a gesture of support for one of the lapped riders, already picking up lapped riders, so that'll give you an indication of just how intense the pressure has been on the bunch, on the front of the bunch, and by these riders off the front at the moment. And Amy Hill has a word, just finds the time to give a little word of support for that lapped rider as they make their way past. There's the advantage between themselves and the bunch behind. Amy Gornall, it looks like, has just established a narrow advantage over the rest of the peloton.
Yeah, Amy Gornall of Secret Training in the middle there, chasing down, having a little look over her shoulder to see where the rest of the bunch are, whether they're following behind. It looks like she's got quite a lot of space, gaps behind her, so she's continuing that to chase down those lead two riders from on form. And positioning is everything. You were saying there about how this is 1.4k, a typical crit tends to be around about that, or even a kilometre or shorter, which is great for spectators because they get to see the race coming around lap after lap, so it's a really, really nice crowd pleaser. But of course it means if you're caught at the back, you're caught napping, it's a very short lap to be in the wrong place when it strings out. See Amy Gornall just coming back in there behind the drops riders as Katie Archibald puts in another devastating attack. So when she decides to go, she goes.
Yeah, big split there, I think, and that could be significant at the moment. The on-form riders are up front, and I think they're going to be joined pretty soon by some very, very significant riders, perhaps some of the strongest riders in there. That's put the cat amongst the pigeons a little bit. You've got Katie Archibald on the front of this very strong group. Ellie Barker's in there. Drops are represented by two riders.
Yeah, Lucy Shaw there, just on the left hand of our screen. She's following the wheel of Katie Archibald there.
Yeah, Lizzie Holden got in there as well for the drop squad. And here comes Archibald across the gap, so she has left those riders. Eileen Rowe you can pick out in the middle of that chasing group, but Archibald's not waiting, and she just charges past the unformed duo, and that's a massive effort that Amy Hill is having to make to get back in the wheel of Katie Archibald.
So you can see what was going through Amy Hill's mind now. She's thinking, right, this is Katie. When she pounces, she goes, and the absolute sheer power Archibald has is just devastating, and they want to get on that wheel. You can see there.
There's the moment.
That's the move they want to be with, but Katie, as I suspected, has gone through, and there they are as a trio.
Yeah, big effort there. Looked like a ticket to stardom there. I'm going to take that bus all the way to to a sprint finish at the end. That was the thinking. Will it translate into that situation? Riders are starting to come across the gap, and significantly, you see in that silver helmet behind, wearing the WNT colours, just preceded by Eleanor Barker. So Eleanor Barker and Eileen Rose, the reigning champion and a couple of the event favourites, started to gravitate towards the front now.
There was a lot of looking around before. Where's the danger move? Who's going to chase? When do I need to go? When do I need to make sure that, you know, I'm really, really with this? And you see that happening now. Katie's gone, Eileen Rose there, and Eleanor Barker as well. They can't let that go.
Well, Amy Hill is set fair in the wheel of Katie Archibald at the moment, and Archibald is not looking for any assistance. She knows that this effort is causing a split. We see WNT have got 3 riders in total in this group. Looks like Ciara McVitie, I think, has just managed to make it in. No, Gabriella Shaw it is. Gabby Shaw has managed to make it onto the back of that group, so that's significant numbers, gives them a tactical advantage.
It really does. They've got the strength in numbers here. As I mentioned, we don't know exactly how they planned out their sort of plan of attack today, but they've got options. They've got incredible team support, and Gabby Shaw has been such a notable rider as just such a trusty teammate throughout the season. She's always there, and she's just always so supportive to her team.
Super job by Amy Hill, super duper job indeed by Katie Archibald. Has a little look around to see what sort of devastation she has created. I think that could well be Ansley Park is on the front of the chase group behind. She's desperately trying to get across this gap. Now we have a group of 3 out front. Archibald looks around to see what sort of what exactly she has created there. She has created a small group out front. Eleanor Barker looks composed. She takes an opportunity to have a little look behind. Amy Hill on the front, albeit briefly, and now these riders are starting to roll through. Barker is going to make a contribution, and I think they could well be satisfied with this group, and Archibald will settle in to try and assist. Now, where is the assistance going to come? Will it be from the drop squad, who put a couple of riders in here and have riders chasing behind as well?
Certainly drops. Again, so much strength and depth as we see Katie Archibald just put the hammer down again, and I think that's what we see here, and it's already causing problems at the back of that group.
It's sayonara, Amy Hill, I'm afraid, and a difficult moment as well for Alicia Speak, who is just trying to latch herself onto the back of this trio of WNT riders, who also include Eleanor Barker. Barker rolls to the front, the Matrix Fitness rider. And that single rider from the drop squad.
So when we've seen Eleanor Barker come onto the road this year, obviously everyone was sort of all eyes on her, thinking, right, is she leaving the track behind? But of course she's not. She's going to go back into that qualification for the track season, but at the moment she's on the road. And I just have to say how impressive that's been, and for anyone that didn't watch the National Road Race, she was out on a solo breakaway just showing what she can do.
Looks like Rebecca Durrell has made it onto the front of the group here as well. No real surprise, the rider from Drops, first in the Matrix Fitness Grand Prix Series. Just consistent performances throughout the Tour Series. And she is just rolls through on the front. On the back of the group, Gabby Shaw from the Team WNT squad, looking to have the strength in numbers, perhaps to bring those stripes back to the team again. But we make no assumptions yet. What sort of chasing is going on behind? And can riders get involved? Picking up lapped riders. And here we have the chase group behind. But once again, Amy Gornall doing, well, wonderful work. And the question is now, Drops with 2 riders in this chase group, do they chase with Rebecca Durrell up front?
Well, they'll have had some interesting chats before tonight, and they'll have a few options. They'll have their game plans, and they'll know what they need to do. So it's very unlikely we'll see them chase down Rebecca Durrell. And we mentioned her before because she has been another consistent performer. We've seen her at races like the Lincoln Grand Prix in the last 2 years, just instrumental. And I think what's interesting about their team is they've had that level of options where you've seen them attack and then they have another rider that goes again, so you never quite know who they've picked as the sort of protected rider for the day. It's a shame not to see Alice Barnes here, but still a tremendously strong showing from the Drops team. And interestingly, we can see Katie Archibald, how she just calmly has a little look around. What damage have I done behind? What do we need to do? And you can see her verbally communicating the whole time. Right, now we need to go, girls.
Now the chase group behind is, well, they're trying to make the junction, because I suppose to a certain extent Rebecca Durrell is a little bit exposed up there. She's got 3 WNT riders against just the 1 rider from Team Drops. For all that she has been a predominant force in the Matrix Fitness Series, well, she really could do with a little bit of assistance up there. So I think could well have a couple of riders make it in here. Eileen Rowe rolls to the front. Eleanor Barker replacing her at the front. And there's decent level of cooperation here, but they've yet to really pull the trigger in earnest.
So what they've managed to do here is the perfect tactic, is they've actually taken themselves, the 2 Drops riders, and they've not brought any passengers. So of course, what I was saying before, you don't really want to chase down a teammate and bring everybody with you, but you do want to offer them that support, as you so well explained. So I think that's what's happened here, is they've managed to, well, at first they had shaken a few of the rivals, but got a few more on the back there. Amy Gornall and 2 riders from Ford EcoBoost, so a bigger front group now.
Yeah, Gornall finally makes it across. You're absolutely right. The Drops riders were using the the considerable legwork of Amy Gornall and then jumped across the gap. Gornall makes it across, but at considerable expense. Look at the way that Katie Archibald drives on the front and the pain and suffering that she's causing to Alicia Speake. In her wake, sitting in third place at the moment for Team WNT, it's Gabby Shaw. And we have the first of the drops riders. 3 in there from the drop squad, 3 in there from Team WNT, 2 from Ford EcoBoost, and a couple of solo riders, most notably Eleanor Barker for the Matrix Fitness squad. Amy Gornall, who's also been very, very active so far in this race, well to the fore. But Archibald, and she is a rider that is not afraid to make an effort. If she's not intimidated by the fact that she will just sit there because she knows that she's causing a lot of pain.
Well, we saw her come into the sport. That's what was so noticeable, is she could win from so many different scenarios. And actually, I think I'm right in saying it was one of her first ever road races. She just looked over her shoulder, went and never looked back, and she got this solo victory all on her own, and almost looked a little bit like, well, you know, where's the rest, where's the chase? And I think the power that she can put down is just that devastating, and we see her win on the track, on the road, endurance, and in this sort of nature of racing as well.
Yeah, tactics are easy when you're just that much stronger, aren't they? You know, and she has a little look around. She actually had a little bit of a couple of bike lengths advantage on Alicia Speake there, and Alicia Speake had a little look around to see would anyone close the gap for. That's how hard it is. Just sitting on the wheel of Katie Archibald is pretty demanding.
It's a very nice place to be, isn't it? And she, for anyone that needs a little reminder, is the Omnium World Champion, European Champion, National Champion, and of course won gold in Rio, so a reigning Olympic champion as well. And she's fresh off the back of a track 6-day as well in Fianzola, taking the overall win, as you'd expect, in her World Championship band. So I think that was a great week for her out there. And she said she's been having a little bit of fun ahead of today, actually grass track racing and doing some things off the bike as well. So she might be that little bit fresher as well.
Focused a little bit more on the road racing in recent times. That group is swelled considerably, hasn't it? And we should probably give a mention too to Lauren Humphreys from the Apriori Bicycles HSS Hire squad, who's just managed to latch on the back here. But this is the select group of favourites. And the riders indeed who have been on the British track team have been focusing on their Olympic ambitions and endeavours over the last 4 years. They've had the opportunity to turn their attentions to the road, and that I think has certainly been to the advantage of British road racing.
It certainly has, and I think that it can be underestimated how difficult it is to come in and out of the track programme and then come and win on the road, but they do, and I think it just shows the calibre of talent that we've got in the UK now in women's racing, and it's just come on leaps and bounds. And it's exciting to watch.
Speaking of exciting, we saw Amy Gornall just on the front. I think we were about to get an attack, indeed we were, by the drop squad, and that could be significant. The best form of defence is often to get up the road and try and make your rivals react, and coming through that technical right-hander, I can tell you the conditions have improved considerably. The drizzle has stopped, and on those cobbles pretty much bone dry, so within seconds the road was just about as dry as it could possibly be. Gornall finds herself on the front again, and well, WNT are allowing her to do the chasing. She wise, that's the question.
Gornall doing a lot of work here, and again, she doesn't have teammates, so she's forcing herself in those positions to see a danger move and to stick herself back on the front, and she's still there. It's very impressive.
Yeah, solid effort. Very, very strong indeed, as Rebecca Durrell goes out front, goes chasing glory. We've just over half an hour complete. We've got just under 20 minutes, so about 18.5 minutes. Then they'll be getting the lap board, so it's 50 minutes plus 5 laps. So there's just a smidgen over an hour of racing in this, so we've just smidgen under half the race remaining.
And it's so lung-busting crit racing, isn't it? You know, there's no respite. It's just every time there's a little lull in the action, somebody looks at a danger move, or they think, right, we could be chased down now. So the pace goes again. So there'll be some people sitting on the likes of Archibald, and of course now this attack out front from Rebecca Durrell, thinking, oh, I just wish there was some respite here.
Well, watch this. It was Eleanor Barker that covered it, and who indeed was it that immediately goes to the front and really puts the hammer down, and it was a trademark Katie Archibald attack. It wasn't one of those out of the saddle, immediately gaining 30 yards one. It was one of those big diesel, big gear efforts that really stretches it thin. And look at the pain and suffering that she's causing. And Eleanor Barker knows better than anyone else in this field the sort of power that Katie Archibald can generate.
Training day in and day out with Katie. They know each other so well. She'll know what Katie's thinking, and she'll know the kind of moves she's likely to make, so she's not going to let her go. But you can see this is certainly not cruisy for any of them.
Not cruisy indeed. No. Great recovery, I think, by Durrell to sit in third wheel. I think that is indeed Durrell, certainly one of the drops riders, and that's a good recovery, because that Katie Archibald wanted to pounce and wanted to put Rebecca Durrell, as much as anything, into big trouble. She was a little bit exposed coming back after that attack. The attack was covered by Eleanor Barker, and immediately an attack comes in from Katie Archibald. Another blow goes on, another low sort of body blow, isn't it? And they accumulate. And as they come to the back end of this race, the riders will be starting to feel it. They know which rider to look at, don't they? As Katie Archibald, she's looking behind as much as she's looking in front at the moment, isn't she? There's only track riders really know how to, well, track sprinters particularly, which Katie Archibald isn't, know how to cycle forward while looking backwards.
We used to do a lot of that back in the days that I used to race track. We'd actually get told by the coaches, you've got to do several laps and you're not allowed to look forward once. Obviously not in the middle of the bunch, but just in training drills. And it just, being a track rider just teaches you that level of skill.
Good core fitness and a decent memory are required here. It's not all left turns here, is it? There's at least one right. Oh, look at this. Another attack comes in from Archibald. Barker's all over this one. This is significant. That's more daylight that they've had of late. Who's going to cover it? I think they're all looking around behind as if to say, well, I don't know, I don't want to do it, you do it.
That's a very, very good point, and I think I would be thinking exactly the same. Eleanor Barker chasing down, and now she's right on the wheel of Archibald, the competitor that she spends day in, day out training with. She looks over her shoulder to see the damage behind, and there's a huge gap.
Well, you know who the most frustrated person is in that group right now? Eileen Rowe, because she's looking at her biggest rival, well, two biggest rivals, going up the road, and she's not in a position to chase this one down because Katie Archibald is her teammate and she's not gone in a position to cover it. Ford EcoBoost have riders in there, Drops have riders in there, and I think it's going to be put up to them by Team WNT to cover this one.
You're absolutely right there. It won't be Eileen that we see chasing this move.
Team WNT aren't going to get involved, but we will see the Ford EcoBoost squad winching that select group of riders clear of the field.
Porter there, chasing hard behind. Just hear some communication there between Katie and Eleanor. Couldn't quite hear what was being shouted.
Well, let's work together and see what happens.
Yep.
Is probably the obvious translation, even if we miss the substance of it. Look at the devastation that's been caused because they're picking up lapped riders in their droves at this point, and we're still, as I say, just a little bit over halfway. The Racing Chance Foundation team have come with a couple of riders and they find themselves a lap down at this moment, and I think we're going to have all but this group lapped by the end. That's just the sort of quality that's involved. Look at Eleanor Barker having to make another effort as he runs through that left-hander. Eileen Rowe now on the front of the group, and that this is a significant moment. If Rowe can get clear on her own or just cover the next move, then she might just get towed across, and that wouldn't be a source of disappointment to her. Bit of encouragement from for Katie Archibald from a teammate as she picks up another lap. She's not smiling. This is a big, big effort, and if you want to know how big an effort it is, look at Eleanor Barker's face.
I think that is the very telling thing. As of course we know these two riders so well from all the Olympic success, but this pace being set by Archibald is just eye-watering, and this section of road is so phenomenally fast as well, and when she goes, this pace is just picking up and up and up.
Down the back end of the circuit as Eleanor Barker of the Matrix Fitness squad leads this group of two out front, just over halfway in the Women's National Circuit Race Championships. Drop squad with the three riders from the drop squad in there, and the reigning champion Eileen Rowe sitting second wheel, covering the moves, watching with interest They managed to make significant inroads lately, but well, now I suspect that little bit of a stall could well cost them dear. Archibald pounds on the pedals. Many of the riders you're looking at behind them are, of course, a lap down. So a lot of daylight now between those two up front. Interesting that Archibald is probably doing the lion's share of the work.
We keep seeing her looking back, and she's just measuring that effort. Where do we need to be? Are we still out front? We've got a few lap riders in the middle there, so that's probably sort of blocking her, obscuring her view a little bit. But she's constantly watching.
Amy Hill well to the fore in that chase group. The rider from the cycle team On Form, who was out front in the early stages, picked up by a counter-attack led by Katie Archibald, who towed a group of riders up to the duo from cycle team On Form. And a couple of riders from the drop squad managing to get involved. Rebecca Durrell, most notably.
And it's about that recovery, isn't it? Because the riders that can go and go and go without burning the match down, as you said earlier, too much, they're the ones in the strong position, because when you get pounced and you're out in the lead and you're on a solo attack, and then you come back in, the level of effort to then get back in the wheels after someone's really counter-attacked on the other side of the road, and you're out in that wind, and then the pace goes again. I guess that's the benefit of being a points race and an Omnium rider, is that's what you do best. But you can see the energy just being sapped from those riders that went out early on.
Yeah, the sort of training that has created that ability. I mean, obviously there's a certain amount of natural talent which has been honed and developed and brought to its full fruition by the most intense intervals that you can possibly imagine. This is road racing at its most intense.
It is, and it's a solid hour of being on the rivet. Whether you're one of the people putting the pain into the other riders or whether you're chasing, there's certainly nothing easy about a crit race. And it's just always straight off, absolutely on with the pace. Attacks from the word go. And that's the kind of training that you need coming into this, especially when this field's so competitive.
Coming through to complete another lap for Katie Archibald, and there's no doubt about how this one's going to be played, because Katie Archibald, little flick of the elbow, yep. And I think that's perhaps an indication that there's a small sense of frustration there. Eleanor Barker is an attacking rider. We've seen that in the National Road Race Championships a little while ago. Just spotted a rider who's come to grief from the back end. That's Amy Hill from the chase group, and Amy Hill has had a mechanical. So she's just on the cobbles, has had to stop, put her chain back on, and she is a former bronze medalist in this event. So Amy Hill, who was involved in a lot of the chasing, finds herself eliminated from that chase group. Still the drop squad, which is doing most of the work. They've got 3 riders in that group. Rebecca Durrell, as we mentioned, Lizzie Holden and Lucy Shaw. And then quite a lot of the effort is being left to them as Lizzie Holden finds herself on her own and trying to do something about chasing across. But just to complete that thought, it's Archibald that's doing the lion's share of the work. Eleanor Barker is not the type to shirk, but she is, I think, playing a card here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to know exactly what's going through their minds now, because you've seen Katie flick the elbow a couple of times saying, come on Eleanor, come through. And we have seen, when we flick back to the front of the action, we have seen Eleanor pull through on her turn, but this is the thing, you don't know how much of a canny race each other are playing at this point.
Eleanor Barker knows as well as anyone just the sort of strength that Katie Archibald can produce here. So will Archibald be happy enough? And is that... I think it is. Let's keep an eye on this big effort from the rider from Drops that's trying to jump across this gap. Is that Elizabeth Holden?
Holden?
Yeah, or is it Holden? Yeah, let's... Could well be Durrell. Just looking at the lap boards from the lap times from the previous lap. No, I think it's actually Holden.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just
so Lizzie Holden there, another very impressive young talent, just chasing across that, and it looks like she's making good inroads there.
Well, let's look at this, because Elizabeth Holden is absolutely flying across this gap. She's put a lot of distance into her teammates being Rebecca Durrell, Lucy Shaw, and they're on the front of the third group on the road, the chase group, but those riders will not be contributing. They're just, if anything, blocking the road, or at least not blocking it in any physical sense, but just going to the front, glass cranking it a little bit and just making it just that little bit more difficult for the other riders to make their way to the front. So that's Elizabeth Holden chasing across this gap.
I think when you watch Lizzie Holden ride across those cobbles, she makes it look so smooth. But I can tell you, for anyone watching at home, that takes a tremendous power output to make it look that smooth. And when she's put the power down, it looks like she's gliding over them, and it looks like she's making good ground here. There's a big gap behind her. And when the front runners come into view, we'll see just how much progress she's making as they come around that turn.
Barker on the front through this fast left-hander at the bottom of this course, just working their way through past the Hallam Sheffield. A conversation, and Archibald saying, well, I'm taking you to the line. So now there's a bit of discord, and that's just what Lizzie Holden needs.
It is. If those two have a little bit more of a sit-up and a look round, it'll give her that opportunity, as we can see now, to chase on to those front two.
So now the two are about to become three as Holden takes the opportunity to have a little look.
You can see her looking behind there, and I think, to be honest with you, that's her thinking, this is incredibly sapping to get on these front two. Is it worth keeping going? So she's looked back. Should I sit up? Should I not? I'm in that no man's land, not quite on the wheel, but you can see her thinking, actually, there's still a big gap behind, so it's worth keeping on chasing.
Well, Holden hasn't quite got there yet, so now there's a decision to be made.
Yeah.
She's done great work. Barker on the front, Archibald in her wheel, and will they allow a third to come in here? Because that would change the mix a little bit. And just as I say it's Eileen Rowe on the front of the chase group behind. So just how hard are they chasing? And what's going to happen? Holden is part of this extraordinary conveyor belt of talent that's come out of the Isle of Man in recent years. The teenager who's moved across to the Drops team in recent times. And what an acquisition she's been. Barker attacks. Barker goes for it.
Barker is off.
Well, we sensed that Barker was perhaps trying to save some energy because she was allowing Archibald to do the lion's share of the work. She likes to get out front and race it from the front. We knew that was likely to be the case. When was the attack going to come? Well, at the moment, I can tell you we've got 16 minutes plus 5 laps of racing. Will Archibald respond to that? Looks likely. Where's Holden?
You could see Holden with that dip of the head earlier, looking back. Do I sit up? Do I keep chasing? But that attack has sealed the deal. She's gone back to the peloton, I imagine now, though we can't quite see on our screens. Oh, here she is, still out in the middle between that chasing group and our front runners. But it looks like Archibald is back on the wheel of Eleanor Barker.
Archibald covers that one. And that all amounted to a difficult moment, I think, for Lizzie Holden, because she finds herself, she's looking over his shoulder, and the body language didn't look good there. I think that big effort by Barker could well have cost her dear.
The problem is, this is the toughest place to be, because you want to chase down those wheels as quickly as possible. And when you're on, that's when you take a moment, a little bit of respite, and then pull through eventually to do your turn. But she's just left hanging out there.
As she goes again, Barker goes once more. Couple of bike lengths advantage over Katie Archibald, but Archibald with that big gear churning is just stalking her rival, working her way back onto the tail of the rider from Wales. Scotland versus Wales at the moment. Katie Archibald from Scotland against the rider from Cardiff, Eleanor Barker. Both of them teammates on the track, but very much rivals here in the National Circuit Race Series. Barker on the front as gets out of the saddle through this cobble section. Archibald finds that centre channel that you mentioned earlier, Rebecca, and that takes the advantage of that. They've got enough daylight to allow spectators to cross the circuit in between. It's going well for them at the moment, but another big effort there from Barker, and it's starting to tell, I think.
Well, a recap on Eleanor Barker. As we're seeing that gap form now, she is the world points champion on the track. She's the reigning Rio Team Pursuit champion as well, alongside Katie, as we can see her just chasing, putting that power down again. And Eleanor is now not only the champion that we know on the track, but she is performing on the road. And she recently got her first UCI road win in the stage race last week. And she has huge ambitions on the road in the time trial as well. And we're hoping to see her at the Worlds in September.
Yes, that team selection will be interesting to see. A bit of a stalemate now between these two riders.
Side by side for a moment there.
Yeah, but for how much longer? Because Both Katie Archibald and Eleanor Barker have called a momentary truce, and what's happening in that chase group behind, one wonders with interest. Well, I can tell you, last lap round, at the conclusion of that lap, as I just pick up the information from the live timing screen here in front of me, it was 16 seconds back to the chase group, which was led by the reigning champion Eileen Rowe. 16 seconds doesn't sound like a lot. It's a lifetime in crit racing. It can be closed down quite quickly, but it's quite a big lead in circuit racing. Don't call it crit racing, do we?
I'm switching between crits, criterium, circuits, but it is a short lap, as we've discussed, 1.4k, and so much damage can be done in that one lap.
All the attacking is coming from Eleanor Barker. She's got a couple of bike lengths advantage once more. This could be a good time to pick it up as well. If you're going to lap the riders in front of you, might be nice to just put a couple of those in between yourself and the rider that's chasing. Archibald runs that much wider, not fully committed running through that corner from Eleanor Barker. She knew that Archibald was coming back to her. How many of these punches can she sustain before Archibald herself thinks about putting one in?
The thing is, they both know what each other are capable of, and that's the interesting dynamic here. Is it's just this game of cat and mouse, being aware that when one pounces it's going to hurt, and I'll be very interested to see who goes next.
Well, attack's the best form of defence in many ways, isn't it? A lapped group of riders about to be mopped up by the leading riders as we come down towards the final 12 minutes, the final 2 minutes before we get the final 5 laps of racing, 50 minutes plus 5 laps. And very shortly they'll be getting, I think, one more lap, and then they'll get the 5 laps to go. Archibald is getting a little anxious now. I think there's cat and mouse between these two riders. They realise that in many ways they appear to be the class of the field, but they don't want to be too complacent, too cocky about that position.
Exactly. They'll look at each other. They're playing this game. However, you can see Katie constantly having a look back, because what they don't want to do is allow that chase group to get back to them, because they're sitting up and looking around too much and worrying about each other. Once they know they've got that space, they're in the closing stages, it might be a different game plan altogether, but for now they just can't be caught napping and let this group catch.
Picked out a shake of the head there from Eileen Rowe. She's towards the back of this group. There was a certain look of anguish in her face, and I'm not sure whether it was the pain of the effort or whether she's got some sort of other difficulty, but difficult moment for whatever reason for Eileen Rowe. Another little moment there from Eleanor Barker, but I don't think that was a full-blooded attack, and it'll be interesting to see what Katie Archibald does as she comes back onto the tail of her rival. So it's Archibald just working her way back onto the tail of the group. Interesting again, Amy Gornall is the rider that is putting in the effort behind. She'd like to get clear because she certainly is not afraid of, and look at that, there's no, that's substantially the lapped group behind. Just a momentary flutter of the heart as I thought that was Amy Gornall, but indeed it's some riders from the Ford EcoBoost squad behind.
Yep, and you mentioned that we didn't quite see a full-blown attack there from Eleanor Barker, and what you'll see now is these little injections of pace to test each other. Well, at some point I'm sure we'll see a more devastating attack, but it's just, right, I'm going to put the power down. Is she still there?
The body language of that chase group behind said to me that they're thinking more about racing for the bronze medal. I'm not at all sure that they're not capable of getting back in contention if these two riders up front continue to jockey for position, continue to finesse and just take it. Well, it's more about, it's a one-on-one at the moment. It's a match race between these two, but they cannot be totally complacent about this.
They can't be complacent, but actually the pace they're putting down is still pretty substantial. And they'll have that lull, they'll look at each other, but then they realise, right, game on, and they start to put that pressure back on the pedals. But there could be that frame of mind in the bunch behind now, and some of those looks on those faces of, well,
we're hearing that they've made a slight adjustment to the timings, and we're actually looking at the last lap. We heard the bell last lap round, so we believe this is the final lap of the race. So that's a change to the stated plan. I do sincerely hope that these riders are aware of it. I suspect, looking at the anxiousness of the body language of Eleanor Barker, that she is very much aware that she is in the final lap. Katie Archibald will stalk her rival from the second position. Will she be minded to pick this one up? waiting for full confirmation. We believe this is the finish. If this is the case, that then we'll certainly know as we see the riders come up through the cobbled section and race into those final 250 metres. Small amount of confusion. It's based on the fact that we believe that the organisers have made a slight change here to the stated plan. No doubt it's to do with the diminishing light and the fact that we've got a packed programme to get through this evening. So I don't think it's going to make any difference to the destination of the first two medals. It's certainly going the way of these two riders up front. The question is, which one is going to get gold and which one's going to get silver? Barker on the front.
Once they've had a little check that chase group is definitely not going to make it back to them, it'll be all down to this cat and mouse game of these two. Once again, they know what each other are capable of, and Katie is launching.
Here it comes from Archibald up the hill on the cobbles. Barker knew it was coming. Can she respond? She's gone for the long one. Archibald needs to know and knows that she's got to try and lead this one out for a significant different distance, and she's going through this right-hander. She almost came to grief earlier in the race. She's going to lead this one out from what? 400 or 500 metres. Can Barker respond? They're charging past up the hill into the final 250 metres. Archibald around the left-hander. Can Barker respond? Goes to the right-hand side, and can she possibly get round? It's a pursuiter's sprint to the line between Katie Archibald and Eleanor Barker, but it's Archibald that gets it. She is the British National Circuit Race Champion. She defeats Eleanor Barker, and what a dominant performance that was. What a strong performance. What an athletic ability, and we watch to see who's going to get third, and we don't quite get full confirmation of that, but that caught everyone by surprise except for Katie Archibald. She gets up to take the championship. We believe that Eileen Rowe has made it a WNT 1-3 finish. It's another podium finish for Eileen Rowe, but she doesn't get top spot. The championship stripes are handed over to her teammate, Katie Archibald.
What a brilliant result for Team WNT. We knew they had two very, very big contenders. Just such a calm wave from Katie there, untroubled by that effort. But you just looked at the point that she launched her attack to lead that out from the front, just from that distance, with such power as well from Eleanor Barker there. Such a worthy contender coming in silver place there. And first and third on the podium for her team. What a phenomenal ride.
Emily Kay is one of the first riders to congratulate Katie Archibald, and as you say, she looks so untroubled. There was a massive effort, and one of the best pursuers in the world, Eleanor Barker, couldn't come around her, and within seconds she's recovered, and it's just gone, well, it's another race chalked off.
I think we need to exactly look at that perspective of just how strong Eleanor Barker is, and that we can see Katie just chatting away here. Just such a talent, such a talent.
Yeah, she almost doesn't know what talent she has, but I think Eleanor Barker certainly did. Let's get a look at this once more as Archibald charges towards the finish. She knew that she needed to play the sprint that way. The long lead out suits her talents.
It does suit her, and Eleanor played that perfectly as well, tucking in behind, looking to launch her attack on the line, but Katie just got it there.
Well, that is a very satisfied grin from Katie Archibald, a 23-year-old. Somewhat disappointed response from Eileen Rowe, but great champion's defence from Eileen Rowe. Once again on the podium, 6 years in succession she's been in the medals in this event.
Yeah, you know, that jersey is so special, but after reflection, it's such a fantastic result. And Eileen Rowe back on that podium yet again, year after year after year. She rides this so well.
It's a victory lap for the WNT squad. They've gathered up some of the troops to celebrate this result, but disappointment for Eileen Rowe. She runs through the post-race review with her teammate Hannah Walker. WNT squad very much the dominant force in British women's racing, and certainly in British women's circuit racing. And they put riders into that lead group, and they put the most important rider of all at front, Katie Archibald. She waves to the crowd. She'll be heading towards the podium very shortly, and she will collect the gold medal for victory in the National Circuit Race Championships, and the gold medal that goes with the championship stripes. James McCallum is on bike collection duty. His fellow countrywoman has taken victory in the national championships. James McCallan himself, of course, a former national circuit race champion. We'll be hearing from Jimmy Mack very shortly.
Yeah, he knows this course very well. For anyone that hasn't followed the background of Team WNT, they stepped up to UCI stages this year and have just brought in a phenomenal level of talent. So it's a very exciting one to watch, and what dominance.
I think Eileen Rowe has just heard that Katie Archibald has got the win, and she's able to celebrate that. So it's a certain disappointment in not getting the victory herself, but she's had it confirmed to her that Katie Archibald has taken the win and that the champion stripes stay in the WNT squad. As you say, that squad has stepped up to UCI level this year, and they've scored a string of very, very impressive results, including a third for Hayley Simmons in the touring Rundfahrt in Austria last week. Or this current week, actually. I think just finished yesterday.
Yes, so many talented riders here, and then equally likes of Hayley Simmons that aren't here fielding tonight, and they're fielding so many different programmes as well, which is brilliant to see.
So Eileen Rowe will be encouraged to make her way to the podium very shortly. She'll be presented to the crowd as a bronze medal winner in the National Circuit Race Championships. Eleanor Barker will collect silver, and the all-important gold medal going to her teammate, the 23-year-old Katie Archibald. Silver in the time trial, bronze in the road race national championships. She's got a full collection now of national medals on the road. Let's get a look and remind ourselves of what's been a very entertaining and a very intense hour of racing. It was all smiles for Eileen Rowe at the start. Katie Archibald showing her intent, gathering herself close to the front of the field. Team on form went out front, Amy Hill and Alicia Speak. And Katie Archibald, in her efforts to make it across the gap, just on the drizzle, or in the drizzle, and on that greasy surface a little bit earlier on. That slowed her only momentarily, because, well, within moments she was across the gap to those two riders from Cycle Team on form, and leading a scatter behind as the chase group formed and the selection was made. Rebecca Durrell from the drop squad has been one of the preeminent riders in national circuit racing in the last year, and that one didn't quite work out. Archibald covered it and within seconds went on the attack herself. Barker recognizing the danger, and these two forming the selection out front. The Barker just accelerating onto the tail of her teammate, but Archibald just with that immense power, superb strength throughout the night, lapping riders. And behind, WNT well represented in the chasers, the drop squad, Ford EcoBoost team as well. And when it came up to this final sprint, well, Katie Archibald went for that trademark long lead out. It's just so difficult to come around, the strength that she's bringing to it. As the crowd bang the boards here in Sheffield, arms in the air eventually for Katie Archibald. She's less arms in the air and more a nice little wave of the fingers, isn't
It's a very polite wave, wasn't it? So chilled out, is Katie.
Chilled and far from arrogant.
Oh, so far from arrogant. I think just chatting to her ahead of any race, even the biggest races she's ever going to do in her calendar, she's always up for a chat, so personable and down to earth and very humble.
Well, a great ability to enjoy her racing, and if you enjoy it, you're more likely to get the best performance out.
I think that's very true, and you've got to have that balance. And I think for the Olympians, for the likes of Eleanor and Katie, that schedule is so full on for the entire Olympic cycle. We see all the celebrations and post 2012, post Rio, but actually when you go up to the British Cycling National Centre, these guys are back into full-on training straight afterwards. It's not all celebrity red carpets.
It's a pressured life, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, and to be able to enjoy it is a great gift.
It is, and I think if you can do it with a smile, your performance is all the better.
Well, there was no lack of inhibition in the way that she raced tonight. Her full athletic ability was presented in fine style here in Sheffield. Just played host to the championships for the second time. National Circuit Race Championships. And the Women's National Circuit Race Championships can trace its lineage back to 1998. Sarah Symington taking the victory on that occasion. Most wins, Hannah Barnes has won three times, 3 National Circuit Race Champions jerseys, and who would bet against Katie Archibald challenging that figure in years to come. Eileen Rowe, the outgoing champion, will hand over the champion stripes to her teammate very shortly. And the clock winding us forward towards the podium. I think we'll get the full updated classification coming. Archibald getting the victory. Okay, there's confirmation, and would you believe it? So that was a little bit of a bum steer we got earlier on, because we would very much like to congratulate, in third place, Lucy Shaw getting the bronze medal. Second, as we saw, Eleanor Barker in silver medal position, but no doubt about the rider who got the gold, Katie Archibald, MB, representing Team WNT, and well done. And congratulations to Lucy Shaw, who we haven't yet mentioned. She got up to take that all-important third place.
Yeah, unfortunately not what we were getting through on the original timings there. So congratulations to Lucy Shaw with drops. A phenomenal ride from her. Brilliant.
Great sprint, and now we're just being presented with the all-important piece of paper that tells us that Charmaine Porter just missing out on the medals, but it's still a fine 4th position. Gabriella Shaw, we believe, was 5th across the line. These are unofficial, very much unofficial results at the moment. Rebecca Durrell in 6th position. Lizzie Holden, Jennifer Powell, Lauren Humphreys, Eileen Rowe just about in the top 10, so that string of podium finishes comes to an end. Still, great champions defence from the Scottish woman. Alicia Speak, Amy Gornall, Amy Hill, Emily Kay, as we run through the finishing positions in what's been a very entertaining evening of racing so far. We're only halfway. We've got the men's event coming up a little bit later, very shortly indeed, as we make plans for the podium celebration. So Rebecca Charlton will be just very shortly making the leap across into the studio, as we look forward to these podium presentations coming up very shortly. They're just making those plans and just making sure that they've got all the medals and jerseys in position. And they've gathered the riders up. Fascinating race. And we look forward to the analysis coming up very shortly. There's a few flat caps in evidence here in Yorkshire. What has that man seen over the years? How much racing has that man seen over the years? Top quality racing in the postmortems will continue. Now we have the presentation just began, and Drops make it onto the podium after their great effort in getting a number of riders into the chase group, into the selection from which the top 2 riders emerged. But Lucy Shaw has collected her bronze medal, has collected the plaudits of the crowd. And Eleanor Barker ultimately, I think, will be a little bit disappointed, but she has managed a national medal on the road after that battling performance on the Isle of Man in the time trial and in the road race. But there is your new champion. Katie Archibald collects the gold medal to go with the silver medal that she managed in the time trial and the bronze medal in the road race. And with it, she collects the national champions jersey that she'll have to wear for the next 12 months in short circuit racing. Eleanor Barker is just explaining the podium protocol. Here comes the trophy, and that's one for a creaking trophy shelf at home. Yet another piece of silverware that will mean only a certain amount to her at this point in her career. In a few years' time, she can look back with great pride. And the all-important flower presentation is made. The
champagne will be presented by Professor Robert Copeland from the National Centre for Sports and Exercise Medicine and the Centre for Sport and Exercise Science from Sheffield University.
Well, Smiles on the podium. Here comes the champagne any minute now. They have to put those trophies and flowers and various baubles they've collected. And very shortly, there's a bunch of photographers are going to be running a mile.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get up to the front of the stage. Come on, guys, we're right at the front. You've all been on the stage many times before. Let's put our hands together.
So first of all, the obligatory shot of the three medalists. Broad beaming smiles here at the finish line, just behind the, well, opposite the podium and behind this camera shot. You've got the imposing figure of the town hall here as the riders in the men's race coming up shortly, beginning their warm-up procedure. The podium celebrations are complete, and no champagne spray. Well, we feel a little cheated here. I know there's a few photographers down there muchly relieved by that fact. About 20 minutes, we believe, to the start of the men's race, and we'll be streaming that live here throughout the event.
Did you think you could close them down at any point, or did you think they were gone for good once they'd left you?
So we look forward to a bit of post-race analysis. Comes up very shortly. What a great women's race we've had. Back to the studio.
Well, that was an incredibly exciting race. Now, Rebecca Charlton, she's made her way back from the commentary team. Have you caught your breath running back?
A bit dishevelled here.
I know, you look fabulous. You look fabulous. Wow, what an incredible race that was. Katie Archibald has done it. It looked very cat and mouse. Let's talk about the race that just happened there. It looked very cat and mouse, especially the last couple of laps.
It certainly was, but I must start by apologising to Drop Cycling's Lucy Shaw, because we had some errors with the timing, and from our commentary position we were trying to work out who'd taken the bronze medal there. So a fantastic ride by Lucy of Drops. Tremendous to see her on the podium tonight. So that's what I'll say first.
Great.
Errors happen in the world of live television, but let's just look back at the race here. You can see it on the screen now, and you sort of saw WNT take to the front. They had the strength in numbers tonight, and as we've talked about, they had that option in terms of taking the jersey with one of the favourites, Eileen Rose, taken this title twice before, and Olympic champion Katie Archibald. And the opportunity presented itself for Katie because she kept pouncing. You could see her looking around.
Now we just saw there actually, Katie, she slipped. She looked to slip there. What happened?
So it was after the rain started to fall, and a lot of the riders were starting to get a little bit wary of that bottom corner that we thought earlier might get a little bit treacherous, and Katie sort of pushed the pace, skipped a bit on those cobbles, pulled her foot out. But
it was a definite heart in mouth moment
there, wasn't it? It really was for all of us as well, probably her a little bit more. But yeah, she sort of got her foot back in, gathered herself, and got straight back on the pace. But that
she did find her flow after that.
She really did, but that sort of thing can knock you in a race, and then perhaps on the laps after that you back it off a little bit, but then it dried out, and the pace, as you saw, was fully back on.
Now Eileen Rowe, she couldn't really get up there tonight.
Well, you have to look at what happened in the dynamic of the racing, because we were saying in the commentary booth, you're not going to chase down your teammate in that sort of scenario. There's probably a hope there that the race would come back together, that somebody else would take that chase on. However, once Katie was out ahead, she became the clear favourite to ride for the team there, followed by Eleanor Barker. So it's an interesting team dynamic. We knew they had two favourites in there, and the team just rode incredibly. But on the day, Katie Archibald's power and strength,
well, that is something she certainly does have. She look at her powering up this hill here. She had eyes on the prize there.
She really did, and such a long lead out. She's on the front. She's taken it on from the front. That's what she wanted, and she got it, and it paid off. But Eleanor Barker, such a strong ride from her as well on the road.
Yeah, she really did have a really great time. So congratulations to Katie. What a phenomenal time that she did have there. There was one point where I wasn't sure that it was going to be us. I really thought Eleanor might have caught her there at the end, but she didn't. She went with it totally and thoroughly deserved tonight, would you say, for Katie?
Oh, absolutely. Thoroughly deserved. A brilliant podium position for all three finishers there. And I think it was a very interesting one. And I was trying to get in their heads, get in their mindset, thinking, right, these riders know each other very, very well. What are they going to do here? And Eleanor, yeah, phenomenal race from her. But in the end, Katie took it on from the front.
Yeah, she certainly did, and it's certainly something that she definitely deserves. So a fantastic win here for Katie Archibald in Sheffield. Now, the UCI Track World Cup, it is coming back to Manchester this winter, and this is all you need to know.
Lovely stuff, guys. So coming out with this, single on you, Becky, British cycling membership.
Okay. It's all things that I think loving. Want to join thousands that are already members here. How long is this program? Now, if it's all things cycling that you love and you want to become a member actually of British Cycling, here is what British Cycling membership will entail for you. Right, well, it's time for the men's event. And I'm very pleased to say I've been joined by James McCullum. Hello.
Good evening, how are you?
Jimmy Mac, Jimmy?
Jimmy or James, whatever you prefer.
Perfect. Now, 2007, I do believe. Well, that's when you won it, but you've also won this race quite spectacularly. And is it fair to say lost it quite spectacularly?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that back. Yeah, as I say, I won it in 2007, and then a couple of years later, I got caught in the line with 50 metres to go by Ed Clancy, who's a good friend, but yeah, it was heartbreaking. There was a lot of tears on the way home and the commute back up to Edinburgh. So yeah, it's one of those races. It's such a bittersweet night tonight. It's really important. This is the champagne night of British cycling.
It really is.
Yeah, criteriums are where it's at in the UK, and we're the best in the world. And tonight you're going to see the British champion.
Now let's have a look at the course. Yeah. What is going to be happening with this tonight? If you just talk us through it.
Well, yeah, the course itself, it's a really honest course in the way in which the start finish is really nice and straight. You've got a really, really fast downhill back end, and then you've got this tight section at the back where there's lots of cobbles on the course, so it's going to be really important to be well positioned on the back straight due to the fact that it's going to be quite a fast downhill with a tailwind. But not only that, you're into this really tight pinch point up towards the finish, and it's going to be ultimately trying to get the best line up there, because the smoother the line you get up that home section, up that dog leg, the L-shaped part at the top of the screen, the more energy you're going to save. So it's about trying to find the smooth line, but there's also lots of other furniture on the road, lots of grates, lots of drains, and if it rains like it just did in the women's race, it's going to be very, very greasy.
Yeah, so they're looking for that ideal racing line to avoid it all. So who are the ones that we're watching out for tonight?
Well, I think the pressure's on the shoulders of Graham Briggs. Local lad. Graham has won here previously, and he's also been the national champion. JLT Condor got a massively strong team. We can see here, obviously, Jacob Hennessy, he's been a bit of a standout rider in the last couple of years. Made a bit of a highlight last year when he won the national rounds. Chris Opie just came off some good form at riding in the weekend at Stockton. But of course you've got old champions like Ian Bibby, you've got Graham Briggs, John Mould, criterium
you can never
expert.
rule people like John Mould out, can
No,
they? On their
Mouldy,
day.
he always comes up with the goods at the right day, and also you get the local riders again. Tom Stewart, it's a course which isn't totally all about criterium. It's all about being a strong lad and being able to get around these corners well. If the weathers change, it then becomes more tactical and more technical as well.
So what does it mean for these riders tonight?
Oh, it's to be national champion. You get to wear the bands for 12 months. It also means an awful lot to riders for contracts for next year as well, because it's that time of the year when you have to be in good shape and you have to be in good condition. So obviously Chris Lawless isn't here. Ian Bibby is. Adam Blythe isn't here, but you've also got old stalwarts like Russ Downing. Obviously Scott Flace is currently around the Tour de France, but Briggsy, Ed Clancy, Russell Downing, Dean Downing, and there's some guy at the bottom there, James McCallum, a long time ago. But
look at that, you still make the slide
just
at the
about.
minute.
Won't be there next year, that's for sure. But no, it's going to be a great night of racing, that is for sure. And it's going to be really exciting to see what happens. There could be potential a lot of infighting as well, because teams like JLT Condor have got an awful lot of talent in there, and it's really important to be thinking about the whole point of view of that. Are they going to stick to team tactics, or are you going to start thinking about yourself for the contracts and for that national jersey? It's an interesting night of racing ahead.
That really is such an interesting one. Can I push you for a name tonight? Who are you backing? Put yourself out there.
I'm going to go either Graham Briggs or Chris O'Bee.
Okay, it was Graham Briggs' birthday the other day. It might be a late birthday present for him.
Briggsy, a bit of cake and a birthday and he'll be a happy lad.
Briggsy likes the rain as well. He did say that to me, and it's not looking that great out there.
No, he's a small, compact rider, very, very strong. He's very good technically as well, so Graham will be all over this tonight. Not even just the fact that it's local, but he'll be absolutely all over it for his training.
Yeah, he's really looking forward to it for sure.
So yeah, as you can see here, we've got all the, this is the standout riders for tonight. We've picked a few here. Good to see riders like George Pym. He's had a bit of a standout year this year. You've also got Johnny McAvoy, who's now currently leading the Grand Prix series, as well as, of course, we spoke already about Jonathan Mould, Graham Briggs.
Connor Swift's having quite a good ride.
Connor has had a really good year this year. He stepped up, became part of Madison Genesis, and to see him actually now at thick end, also a local lad, it's going to be interesting to see where he comes tonight, because it's a course which will suit him. It's a strong rider's course. If it stays dry, it's going to play to his strengths.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, looking at that, it really is any man for himself. I wonder what the JLT Condor boys will do. You know what? I'm actually going to stop you right here, because Katie Archibald, I'm very sorry, Jimmy. We're going to switch the seats here. Katie, come and join me. Just caught her out the corner of my eye there. Sorry about that. We will return to that chat. Katie, congratulations. Thank you. You absolutely did it. That championship jersey, it is yours. You are wearing it. How do you feel right now?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I even told them the wrong size. It must be smaller than I expected. It's a really fantastic evening, yeah.
Yeah, and how was it out there? It looked very cat and mouse at the end there between you and Alan. You know each other well. Were you trying to outsmart each other? Did you know what was going to happen?
Yeah, well, from my perspective, there was no fear for me of it. Just went straight back to the bunch. I'd really committed to the early move that had seven riders. So it was myself, Gabby Shaw, Eileen Rowe, both teammates of mine, and then 4 individuals. So that was what I kind of put my tank into. And then when we got away as a 2, the attack for me had just been to kind of soften up the bunch. We got away as 2 and it worked a bit, and then I guess we had the advantage of 6 people in the race and a DS at the side, and I think Ellen is understandably quite aggravated. Well, yeah, nobody wants 2nd or 4th for the worst in the world, but from our perspective, yeah, dead happy.
Well, look, we can see you coming up there. I think this is the end of the race. Everyone's banging on the boards. Can you hear the crowds at this point?
Oh yeah.
You know what's going on.
It was more through the race when you're making attacks that you're trying to relax your whole head, that you can hear it coming through. Whereas at that point, it's just, I guess, white noise. Everything eyeballs out. There's no. There's no way.
You look so happy right there. How was? You didn't want it to rain tonight. You said that before. It was a little bit on and off. We saw at one point you seemed to slip coming around a corner. Was it you lost your foot? Did you lose the wheel?
Yeah, I'm glad we got that on camera, because that was very annoying. Yeah, my chain just totally came off. I made a mistake of we're coming through to the corner, and I knew I was going to slow down. I wanted to be in a smaller gear, and just changing, going around a corner on cobbles was an idiotic idea. Chain came completely off.
Oh, look, I think we can see it right now. Oh!
Yeah, so the slip is just where the chain comes off, and then here I am going like, go back in.
And it all comes. You managed to get back in though.
Yeah, well, I guess I was off the front, so what I lost was just what I gained, and it was one of those, you've made an effort to break even, which is really always very aggravating.
But you didn't lose your confidence. Sometimes that can knock a rider if that happens, but you just kept your head down, kept powering forward.
Yeah, there's only one crash that I actually saw, but it was a case of our team said from the start, like, get in the front, because it's gonna, like, you just don't want to be caught and somebody else looking out. I wouldn't be surprised to hear there are more crashes around that corner. Yeah, it was just a case of, I think I said this earlier about you put the power where you can, and smarts where you can.
And how brutal was it out there tonight?
Yeah, no, very. I feel basic if I'm honest. It's all sort of like come out of me now.
Yeah, of course. You must be exhausted. Well, we're going to go let you cool down, celebrate. Congratulations. Fantastic racing there, Katie.
Thank you. Thanks.
Enjoy that one. Okay, I think we are going to, the boys are just about ready in actual fact. So we're going to go to our commentary team, Rebecca Charlton and Declan Quigley.
All set to go for the start of the Men's National Circuit Race Championships. 50 minutes and 5 laps for the men as they gravitate towards the front. And as if by magic, James McCallum has made the long journey from the studio to the commentary booth. 50 plus 5 laps, we take that one with a grain of salt. It's certainly going to be just around about the hour of racing for riders. Pretty hot, intense effort, and we've got a couple of former champions who are well to the fore and going to be very prominent tonight. You've already run the rule over the favourites. Let's just remind ourselves of the riders that we're expecting to perform well tonight.
Going to be at the thick end tonight, and really more importantly, they're also teammates, so this could either work really well tactically, or it could absolutely backfire depending on the tactics of the team and also the tactics of the individual.
JLT Condor certainly have the strength in numbers, but we'll also watch for the other preeminent squads such as One Pro Cycling, Madison Genesis, Bike Channel, Canyon. We don't want to single out too many teams because there is quite a significant number of riders, just over 100 riders taking part in this evening's fair. That is going to be a pretty busy first lap, to say the least, as we've got several former champions. Ian Bibby, the 2015 winner. The reigning champion Chris Lawless is not available for this year's event. He's getting prepared for the Tour of Utah, but Ian Bibby, the 2015 champion, has been called to the front, as indeed has Graham Briggs, his teammate, and perhaps one of the pre-event favourites, looking very relaxed at the moment. Ian Bibby and Graham Briggs. Briggs perhaps a little less so.
Yeah, Graham's definitely got the eye of the tiger tonight, but this is always a very nervous point of any criterium. Just the sitting, waiting, almost waiting to be shot. You know, you're just sitting there, you've spent all day, all week thinking about this. You've then got to the event, you've had your meal, you've done your warm-up, and now it's showtime. And this is the part where, you know, you could benefit or lose from the psychological warfare which is actually happening, because look at Ed Clancy. Cool as a cucumber. He's been here, he's seen it, he's done it, he's got several t-shirts as well as the medals, so this is nothing new to Ed, but it's going to be an interesting first couple of laps for sure, because there's going to be lots and lots of nerves.
Ed Clancy, the 2010 champion, and as you say, he's got several t-shirts, including the t-shirt they gave, the national stripes that you indeed yourself won back in 2007, Jimmy. And the riders of prominence, the riders of significance, have been called to the front of the grid, and so many of them from the JLT Condor squad. The rest of the riders called to the front. Very shortly they'll be sent on their way for the single sighting lap, the single neutralised lap. We should also mention Russell Downing is in there too, 38 years young, and how dearly he would like to wear champion stripes once more. Winner of this championship on 3 occasions, 2003, 2009, and most recently 2013. And most recently, of course, for Russell Downing, celebrated his wedding just a few days ago. What sort of tapering would do that?
Yeah, his morale's high, you know, and also the gentleman who got recently married as well as Matt Cronshaw from Madison Genesis just last week as well. So there's a lot of guys getting older and settling down, should I say, but we'll be interested to see if the old sense chips have kicked down now that the age is coming part of it, you know, because as you get older, you don't want to take as many risks, and if it rains tonight, there will be a need for some risks to be taken.
Sticking my thumb in the air, I can tell you that there's no sign of the drizzle that briefly interrupted the women's race. Caused that little moment for Katie Archibald when she so nearly came to grief on the cobbles. If that does appear at any stage, I can tell you it will make a significant contribution to the way that this race unfolds. A lot of very nervous looking riders. The bells toll to tell us that it is 8 o'clock, maybe 8 o'clock and a tiny bit here in Sheffield. We're ready to send the riders on their way in the National Circuit Race Championships. JLT to the fore, but just to complete that thought. How much do you race as a team when it's a national championships?
It's always a difficult one, to be honest with you, Declan, because, you know, team managers, for instance, like Tim Ellison from Bike Channel Canyon, also John Herity, as well as Mike Northey from Madison Genesis, they will have a team plan of the best case scenario for them to come away with the national championship. However, a lot of things happen in bike races. There can be crashes, there can be mechanicals, and now you no longer get a lap out for a mechanical or a crash. So the race can go up in flames very, very quickly. You have to be very, very flexible in what you're thinking, and I like to describe it as you never have a plan B, you've always got a flexible plan A.
Yeah, no lap out is the big change in circuit racing in Britain in recent years, and that is a change to the way things operated in years past. And that lack of a lap out can really cost riders dear, but already on this sighting lap, well, it's a pretty hectic sighting lap, isn't it? As neutral laps go, a little less intense for the riders up front, but there's going to be plenty of jockeying for position in there.
Yeah, and in terms of that, this course is actually, it lends itself, it's a bit more of an honest course. It's a lot wider, there's a lot more space to move up, whereas courses which you've seen previously in Abergavenny or in Stockton at the weekend, it's very, very tight, and you can see right now there's riders here, you know, backed up just through that corner. There's obviously been a bit of a pinch point there, maybe someone's hit a barrier. It looks actually like one rider's dropped his chain at the back there, so obviously they'll see this happening, they'll slow the race down and let everyone get back together, but I would not like to be in that position right now because his nerves are going to be jangling, that's for sure.
Well, were all those riders gridded? Maybe they just gridded some of them, and then some of the rest that just joined in as they made their way around on that assembly lap. He's got the chewing gum in. It's soccer stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, he's got to focus, Briggsy, hasn't he? He's got those eyes tonight. It's going to be interesting, actually, as you can see right now, that there's a lot of nerves here. The first lap in any criterium is nervous, but he's even more nervous with the presence of the motorbike. Everyone wants to be near the motorbike, because the minute that pulls off, it is race on, and it's going to be absolute hell for it.
All the big teams making their way well to the fore. No surprise we're seeing riders from Bike Channel Canyon. We watch out for Harry Tanfield's been on absolutely flying form in the National Circuit Race Series of late. Jack Puller as well. Chris Opie you picked out in the pre-event, sprinting well in Stockton in road racing last week in the Stockton Grand Prix road race. Can he translate that form to the more condensed 1 hour criterium style racing? Cowbells jangle as they send the riders on the way, and they work their way up and around the final bend into the home straight. The motorcycle will move ahead, and that will signal the beginning of racing for the evening.
And you can see right away it's just about to kick off. Everyone's at the saddle looking, a little bit of posturing happening here. Everyone's fighting for position this first lap because you want to be careful. The first 20 minutes of any criterium, it's anyone's race. Everyone's fresh. The sooner you get into the second and the third 20 minutes of these races, people get tired, people start making mistakes. And that's why it's always important to look at your position in this type of bike race, but also you've got to have your head on a swivel looking after your team leader or your sprinter, but you've also got to make sure that you are represented in every breakaway, because the last thing you want to do in a criterium is be the team on the front doing the chasing.
Yes, it's much attack is the best form of defence is really the way it works in criterium racing. But where's the first attack going to come from? And you get a sense of the intensity. So often in bicycle racing you find out just how hard it is by looking at the back, not at the front.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where you get the real telltale signs. But you can see right away, Chris Opie is not a rider who's want to take any chances tonight. I think he's just trying to settle his nerves, to be honest with you. This is going to be the first time we're going to hit this corner at anything near race speed. And you've got to remember, the riders have just ridden around this course at warm-up pace. They have not taken any of these corners at full gas yet. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the first couple of laps.
Well, down to the left-hander that takes them back up Norfolk Street, and that really is the significant braking and acceleration point. They really get the bikes cranked over. They're coming into it at speed, and they're accelerating into a drag, and that is probably the most intense part of the lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only is it a drag, but it's also cobbled. So you can actually see here, there's also a lot of grates on the road. There's a grate on the right-hand side. As you're on the apex, you can just see Tobin Horton having to guide himself around. And this part of the course is where all of the fatigue is going to set in. You can see Chris Opie, they're trying to get that little seam of nice smooth tarmac there. The more time you spend on the smooth bit, the more energy you're going to save. So as the race progresses, you'll start seeing the whole of the bunch being on one single line, all fighting for that small seam of smooth tarmac. So that's where the positioning really comes key, and it's fundamental to this course because it's a strong rider's course.
It's a strong rider's course, there's no doubt about it, and I'll tell you what, they're not far off pretty much in one long line at the moment. Bike Channel Canyon own it at the moment. The JLT Condor squad have put a couple of riders in there as well, and the One Pro team well to the fore. Wheelbase need to get riders up there as we pick them scrolling through shot. Harry Hardcastle and Matthew Shaw from the Wheelbase Cabtech Junior Road team have managed to get themselves in amongst some of the better known names. The Bike Channel Canyon squad duke it out at the front.
It looks like George Tim, one of our pre-race favourites, actually. You know, a lot of this is posturing, a lot of this is getting rid of the nerves, because remember, these guys have been thinking about this all day. The flag is now dropped, and they just want to make sure and reassure themselves that the legs are still there. It's more of a psychological game right now, more than a physical one, to be honest with you, Declan.
But of course, the danger is that you might just burn a couple of early matches just through the sheer nervous tension of it all.
And that's the fine art of being a criterium racer. You have to be able to be in that fine balance of, you know, being aroused for the race psychologically, but also being physically ready and physically warm and ready for all the thrashing of out of every corner, the sprinting full gas. And it looks like Tim just now is just wanting to get himself out of the cobbles first, and you wouldn't be surprised if he takes this middle seam just up the middle of the cobbles. And there you go, straight away onto the smooth part. You can now see as you look back down the line, they're all kind of sliding towards that. And that's going to be really, really important as the race goes on, as we just touched upon. The cobbles aren't very smooth. They are quite a lot. It's not Paris-Roubaix, but it's still rough, and it will still take it out of you over the course of this race.
Yes, if the preference is for smooth tarmac versus those cobbles, while as you say they're not, they're a long way from Paris-Roubaix, but they're a long way from the sort of smooth road they get on the rest of the course. So you can possibly take every possible advantage through that little seam up the middle. Well, why not? George Pym to the fore in the early stages. He's not going full bore. He's cutting into the wind, but not with maximum intensity. And he's controlling a position near the front as the Metaltech Quota rider finds himself in a good position ahead of the Bike Channel Canyon squad in similar from the front at least, blue jerseys.
You can just see hovering at the back, two Scottish lads, Evan Oliphant and David Lines from Wheelbase. They're veterans of these races. They've been around. They're sitting at the back. It's not looking too stressful actually right now at the back. They look like they're in just waiting, biding their time, waiting for a good chance to move up and save as much energy as possible and use that towards the end of the race.
Yes, but how much of a danger is it if you find yourself at the back while while you're able to survive the intensity of the effort and stay in the wheels? Okay, you could find that someone, 10 or 15 wheels in front of you isn't quite having such a good night.
Yeah, absolutely. And one rider who usually does ride at the back, if you watch a lot of these criterium races, is actually Ed Clancy. Ed prefers to be out of the way in the first couple of laps because he's got that raw speed, but you can actually see tonight Ed's just coming back to racing after having quite a serious infection in his right knee. His knee is like 2 or 3 times the size it usually is, and he's really struggling with it. This is his first race back, so you can see the way in which Ed's riding. He's posturing to the point that he's maybe not overly confident of his chances tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays a massive part in JLT's plan towards the end for the lead out.
Well, Kent racer Alex Patton for the Madison Genesis squad goes to the front. Clancy not too far from the front either, with that thing just slipping up towards
like
the fore.
His chain there as well, Declan. There's loads of hazards on these cobbles. As you notice, all the riders are in the saddle up here. The reason you do that is because trying to be as smooth as possible. Now, Pym dropped his chain there, but I've been looking down the line about the top 15. Young, small figure of Mr. Tom Pidcock.
Well, European and world junior cyclocross champion, winner of Junior Paris-Roubaix. So these cobbles will hold no fear for a man who really displays no fear in all his dealings. Tom Pidcock is a rider of enormous potential and really is one of the most exciting young British talents, and we watch with interest to see how Pidcock is going to get on in this race today. Already a winner, of course, this year of one of the Tour Series events, so he's not cowed in any way by the ability and the quality of the riders that's around him. Wearing dossard number 66, watch out for the 17-year-old from Leeds, Tom Pidcock.
Yeah, he's a very interesting and exciting rider for the future. We've seen it in the Tour Series just a month or so ago on one of the hardest rounds of that series. In Durham, lots of cobbles, like tonight. Technical course a little bit more, but it's also a strong rider's course. The fact that Tom's a little bit smaller, he's not carrying as much body weight. So, in essence, this finishing straight up the cobble section, power to weight does come into the equation. He's small, he's light, he'll float over these cobbles if he has to. So he's definitely one to have an eye on. He's going to be part of this race, whether it's at the end or from this point on. but he will definitely figure tonight, I'm sure of it.
No, watch out with interest to see what happens for Tom Pidcock and how he can get involved in the action as Alex Patton continues to lead, still waiting for the first attack of real intensity. I feel it's not too far away at the moment.
You can just see a lot of barging around the shoulder from the young wheelbase rider in the green and black, but yeah, it's going to be interesting now because everyone's just waiting. They're just waiting, and the minute this starts, when it gets lit up, that is it. It's going to be a race on for the duration. I'm pretty sure of it.
It's pretty quick back there, and there are riders suffering towards the back, but there is a sense that for the riders at the front, this is the phony war, isn't it? We're waiting for the first salvo to be fired.
Absolutely, I think that's the first shot's been fired there on the right-hand side by JLT Condor. Was it potentially Stephen Lampier, I think? We'll get a better eye when we get the camera view from the motorbike. No, it's actually his bike channel. Alistair Slater in second place, and you see Ed Clancy right away on the front, hitting the brakes, letting the gap go, seeing who is intent in chasing this.
Just wants to have a little look at it. Picked out Pidcock as well, as you had mentioned, in the sky blue colours, light blue colours, a little bit further back in the line. But this is the first moment as we see Wiggins trying to close this one. Could it be Howells, perhaps, or is it Madison Genesis? We watch to see who's going to jump across that gap and control that. I think indeed it is Reece Howells from Team Wiggins that has just decided that he's a little bit concerned about that, a little bit further back indeed in the line. As 4 or 5 riders.
I think actually it was local rider Joey Walker, the son of the crit god, Mr. Chris Walker, who was, for me and a lot of my generation, he was the hero of the 90s. Absolutely untouchable, and I would say on his day, the best Criterium rider ever.
Well, this no pressure then for Joey. He's got to step up to a considerable standard presented by his father. And there you get a sense, I think, of just, it's by no means an alpine climb, but it is a little bit grippy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely getting stickier. You can start seeing now the bunch itself is not as wide as it was just 2 or 3 laps. And you see a little mistake there. That's what you need to be careful of. Katie Archibald almost came a cropper in the same corner in the women's race. It's all about taking a nice, smooth line. But unfortunately, the cobbles ain't smooth. You've got to really, really think about your body position on the bike as well and try and absorb some of that through your legs and through your arms. But luckily enough, got away with it that time round the corner.
Yeah, stay balanced on the bike. And let's have a little look at this again. And that was a sketchy moment.
Yeah, it's the back wheel just lining up, just on the gas, just going around the corner, and it's very easily done. Thankfully, it was dry. If that had been a little bit wet, a little bit greasy, he would definitely been straight down on the floor.
So it looks like young Matt Noel is just setting the tempo on the front for the Bike Channel Canyon squad, doing a solid job and staying upright, which is his greatest achievement so far. And just a little bit of a gap there. It's going to have to be controlled. Danny Slater just sitting in second place, is it? That's just trying to cover this one. Look at the way the bunch is stretched thin. This one is starting to boil up nicely as dusk falls over Sheffield.
And this actually here, Declan, is one of the most important parts of the course. It's not technical. It's just straight. It's also very fast, but what we'll see now is there will be waves of riders. So if you look on the right hand side of the road, there's a big wave coming up. You have to be on your toes constantly along this section. You can see how the bunch moves. It moves up the outside and down the middle. You have to pick which side to go on. And sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it totally wrong, and you lose 50 to 60 places quite easily.
Yeah, interesting to see Ed Clancy just going to the centre of the road there, as the one wave went on the left-hand side of the road and the other one was just coming back from the right. Clancy up the middle and just by dint of that effort maintaining his position in the first 10 without going to the front. Still these nervous early moments that are part of the process of softening up so many riders. Who pick up Graham Briggs in the middle of the field, a little bit further back than you might expect from the 33-year-old from Doncaster.
Yeah, and that's a prime example of what we just spoke about. 1 minute you're in 5th place, next minute you're 20 places back. So you have to be constantly in that small bubble of the rotation. You have to be looking over your shoulder and looking for that coming, and then you have to be proactive with your positioning and put yourself in that position. So it's not going to come to you for free, that's for sure. Not tonight.
Rider number 32 is Graham Briggs, the championship winner back in 2011. Pressure on the front as another lap is completed. Clancy scrolls through shot, and a few riders starting to feel looking for their second win now. as Robert Scott of Team Wiggins has already seen some decent work done by Joey Walker, his teammates. Just 3 riders for Team Wiggins involved tonight compared to the massed ranks of JLT Condor. No limited team numbers involved here. And indeed, no established team tactics, you might say, but I think that certainly several teams will be desperate to make sure that the stripes are going to their squad.
And we could just see there on that downhill section that Tom Stewart on the left here from One Pro Cycling in the white and the light blue, he had a little dig there just to see what's going on. It'll be interesting to see how One Pro play tonight, because they don't actually have a designated sprinter for this kind of race. They're going to have to be attacking, and one rider who could be very, very dangerous tonight is Pete Williams.
Peter Williams in good form, very prominent in the Stockton GP road race last week, and Sam Williams there as well. Tom Stewart, Josh Hunt, Christian House, former road race champion, is also present. Here comes the next attack. Inevitably, not perhaps inevitably, but certainly no surprise to see Team Wiggins involved in this one.
Again, it's Joey Walker, just been trailed there by young rider George Wood. Now, he's had a bit of a step up this year as well, done a massively impressive race, chasing till his legs ultimately fell off in the Nocturne in London just almost a month ago. You can see here, Mould has sat up. Now, this could be an important tactical moment. Someone is going to have to react from the peloton, because that mix of riders, there's not a One Pro Cycling rider in there. Every other team is represented, so it'll be interesting to see what happens here. JLT Condor are trying to shut this down by filling the road. And you can see George Wood's right on it.
George Wood on the front. John Mould did all but stand it on its nose in the effort to say that I'm happy with that, I'll select that one. Christian House goes to the front because One Pro know that this is not yet perhaps the time to let that group up the road, but well, there's representation from all of the top teams, with the obvious exception of One Pro at the moment. Bike Channel Canyon trying to get a rider across the gap, but they're going to just Joey Walker is just going to flick the elbow and ask for a contribution. One Pro trying to attack. It'll be covered inevitably by JLT Condor as going to the front. Ali Shaw just trying to cover this one.
Yeah, it's a big attack there also by local lad Tom Stewart. Now here we have Joey Walker again, gesticulating, come on guys, let's get organised, let's see if we can get Ed Clancy, former champion. We were speaking about him at the top of the show. Ed, to be honest with you, he's there just to mark the move. I don't think his condition is good enough to win tonight, but you can never put Ed Clancy in a corner.
So are we expecting that Ed Clancy will just sit on the back and perhaps say, well, I'm not actually the one that we're betting on here tonight, so I'm just going to sit here and just let the others do the work for a while?
Yeah, absolutely. It depends on his form. On any other given day, if Ed had had his normal roll of form into this race, you would bet on him every single time. But right now, he's on the way back from obviously a serious injury, and he's still carrying that injury right now, so it's going to be interesting to see how he plays this. Right now, Alex Patton, Madison Genesis, he's giving it full beans up here on the home straight, and you can just see how hard this home straight is. The legs are absolutely running, and Clancy's actually getting slightly gapped along here in the home straight, so it'll be interesting to see. Ed himself, very, very good bike handler. Spends an awful lot of time on his motorbike, on his trails bike. He can turn that bike on a sixpence, but it's all about the legs tonight, not necessarily about the bike handling.
Well, indeed. And Ed Clancy, I think they're just perhaps a slight indication of lack of racing miles. That'll come pretty quickly for him, but he's going to need more than the hour he's going to get tonight. But Ed Clancy has infiltrated this move, is representing a threat for the JLT Condor squad, and is doing great work in representing that threat. Joey Walker is there for Team Wiggins at the back of the group. On the front here, Alex Patton for the Madison Genesis squad is just scrolling through, and George Wood in the orange colours just flicks the elbow and finds out Clancy is on the wrong side, and Clancy wasn't too happy about that.
Yeah, you can actually see now they've got quite a lot of daylight. Now on this course, yes, it has got big long straights, but there's the odd kink in the road, so what this group needs to try and do is stay out of sight. When they're out of sight, they tend to get out of mind. So what's happening here is that you can just see the front of the bunch just coming. It looks like Chris Opie's on the front, just trying to keep the momentum, trying to keep the group rolling. But it's going to be interesting what happens here, because ultimately Bike Channel Canyon have missed it, so has One Pro Cycling, so they're going to have to get in cahoots with each other and start making this bunch move.
So two significant teams have missed out here, but we've got some significant squads certainly well represented up front. Joey Walker is there for Team Wiggins on the front now. Alex Patton for the Madison Genesis squad. George Wood has made it into the move, as indeed has Ed Clancy. Ed Clancy's JLT Condor squad teammates are just watching, policing behind, while Clancy might be said to be encouraged maybe to sit on and just watch this move. His teammates behind are not actually contributing to the chase, so it's a double whammy really for the JLT squad. Having said that, Clancy is starting to ride through.
Yeah, absolutely. He's rolling through, showing a bit of willing, so he doesn't basically disrupt the move in total. He wants to be there to represent JLT Condor, but I think it's what's happening right now back in the bunch. This is really quite an interesting point of the race, because we're now getting close to the first third of this race, and you can see here George Wood is not willing to hang around. Ed Clancy's kind of playing a bit of a cagey game here. He has to really be careful with his reserves. As we say, he's coming back to racing, but you know, you get two other real strong lads here in Joey Walker as well as Alex Patton, two riders who are more than willing. You can see Clancy here is now missing turns, so that could be, you know, the end of this break. It all depends what's going to happen here. It looks like Bike Channel Canyon have got their stuff together. Now they need to chat with One Pro Cycling, and they need to start mounting a chase.
Two teams have put shoulders to the wheel. They're involved in the chase, and look at the way they're stretching the bunch thin on that part of the course where you might expect it to bunch up a little bit and riders to appear left and right to try and make their way up. But the pace is certainly very intense. A little bit of a blow there from George Wood of the Richardson's Trek Racing team, as he's feeling the intensity of the effort, continuing to make the big contribution. As behind Alex Patton from Madison Genesis, tall figure, tall imposing figure, and I think every time they stall a little bit in that group, Ed Clancy rolls through, and as he reaches this section of cobbles and goes along that, well, I was going to say he goes along this narrow channel, not there as they make it through this little right-hander. Wood on the back here, Clancy on the front, sandwiching Patton and Joey Walker. Meanwhile, Bike Channel and One Pro behind.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can see the ominous figure there of former British champion Christian House. Christian is an absolute expert on chasing things back like this. He knows exactly what he has to do, and more importantly, when and how to do it. But you can see here right now, one of the favourites we kind of highlighted at the start of the race, Chris Opie, is having to do an awful lot of work on the front here, and he's not got an awful lot of teammates round about him. If I was there, Team DS, Tim Elvison right there, I would be shouting to them, get to the front, give Chris a break, let's start moving this group.
Joey Walker flicks the elbow, asks the question. George Wood is able to answer it. Ed Clancy is just going to tuck in for now. Alex Patton also just missing out. Perhaps there isn't absolute full confidence from Madison Genesis and from JLT Condor that this one has legs, but for all that, they'll leave a rider up there for a while. They continue to tap through where it's well, relatively easy. All things relative here, because this is a pretty intense effort. Ed Clancy, what an incredible shape he has on a bike. It's absolute poetry in motion.
Yeah, I'm just having a close look at Ed Clancy's bike. If you look at his wheels, his tyres look deceptively large. I heard the rumour tonight that the JLT Condor have actually running 28mm tyres, which is the kind of tyre you would use in Paris-Roubaix. So they're thinking of this climb up towards the finish. They want to have as much contact with the ground as possible when it's full gas. So things like that, that's the devil in the detail there from John Herity. He's making sure that his lads have got the best equipment for these conditions.
And how many riders will have pressured their tyres for the expectation or the possibility of rain, and they could well find themselves at a bit of a disadvantage if the rain doesn't come, or vice versa. Those that haven't thought about it, if the rain does come, could well find themselves caught out with tyre pressures just a little bit high.
Tyre pressure in this style of race is very important, because it's a city centre you're in. You've got to remember there's lots of traffic, there's lots of oil, rubber, grease on the roads from all of the vehicles. But not only that, you've also got changes of surface, you've got grates, you've got bumps. I was always, back when I was still racing criteriums, I would never ride more than 90 psi in my tyres, just in the eventuality. We do live in the UK after all, the weather can change in 5 minutes, and especially at this time of night, it is forecast to potentially rain. I would have said that majority of the riders, I do know that the girls in WNT in the women's race earlier, they were running as low as 70 psi in their tyres, so it'll be interesting to see if it rains, if that becomes a factor. Yeah, it's remarkably different to the old days where it was just about pump as much pressure as you could get in. The thinking was that that reduced your rolling resistance. Radically different thinking these days. It's understood that if you can get those tyres not quite balloon level, but where it's not an aerodynamic inhibition, get them as big as possible and just lower the tyre pressures, get the contact patch that you need with the road and get as much grip. And while all these riders will certainly, and their mechanics will certainly have been thinking about this. The bunch continues to be stretched thin. There's little to choose between these riders as they scroll through another lap. Riders up front continuing to hang on to this advantage. Patton up front,
There's a 13-second lead last lap round. 13 seconds between this quartet leading up front in the early stages of the National Circuit Race Championships. In the orange for Richardson's track racing team, it's George Wood on the front. Next up is Alex Patton for Madison Genesis Racing Team. Joey Walker for Team Wiggins, and the imposing figure of Ed Clancy on the back of the group, continuing to punch a few tickets and maintain a watching brief.
Yeah, and you can also see at the front of the bunch there, Dexter Gardius. He unfortunately never made it across to this move, so the onus is now on him to maintain the speed in the bunch. But you can see in fourth place, the red we spoke about just a few minutes ago, young Tom Pidcock, just waiting there, waiting for a moment, waiting for another move to go across to that breakaway. It'll be interesting to see how he plays it tonight, because he can fly solo. There's no pressure on him. He just has to try and take advantage of all the team tactics that are going on around about him. So it's going to be quite an interesting move for that young lad.
Well, the bunch are still very much in vision as Joey Walker leads them across the line to complete another lap. We pick out Pidcock. We'll have a look for him in the bunch, but he was sitting about third or fourth wheel in the chasing group in those light blue colours. So have a look out for the Junior World Cyclocross Champion and one of the real emerging talents, just still in the junior ranks, or shortly to emerge for them. There you have Pidcock, number 66, just sitting on those two riders from the JLT Condor squad with Jonathan Mould, Graham Briggs just in front of him, and two riders with big reputations, but that won't be of any concern to Tom Pidcock. When is his attack coming? You sense that it's coming soon. Will he be able to race across this gap, currently sitting at not a whole lot more than 13 seconds?
Yeah, they're just still in sight of the bunch. So you can see that on the last shot we had, that a lot of the riders from Madison Genesis, JLT, all the larger teams like One Pro Cycling, they're all looking around and they know that another attack's going to come. This isn't going to be the race-winning attack, in my opinion. I think there's going to be riders coming across it, and you can see now the hard work done by Dexter Gardius has actually brought this gap down. We're only talking now a handful, I mean, it's under 10 seconds. I'd say about 8 seconds taking it from that line in the road. On my head, it's just, you know, you can see also here, two riders right on the back of it. Mould, Briggs, JLT Condor just waiting for the next move to roll on the back of it, and I'm telling you something, it's not going to be long before it comes.
Well, I certainly believe you. I think it's coming. You can sense it. You can feel it in the air here in Sheffield, can't you? That bunch is ready to pounce. Madison Genesis making themselves present. For the first time, we've seen Harry Tanfield towards the front for the Bike Channel Canyon squad, and he really has lit up the roads in city centre racing lately.
Yeah, again, it's another circuit which really suits his attributes. Massively strong rider in a straight line, and there's a heck of a lot of straight lines on this course. Harry can offload full power, full gas. When he goes, you have to be on the back of Harry. He is so strong, and you can see right now the hard work done here by Dexter Gardius. As you look at the lap board, 17 laps to go, they now realise, and it looks like Harry Tanfield is now rolling to the front to maintain the pressure on this group, because they want to bring it back. They want to bring it back, reset, and then let's start racing again.
Tanfield on the front of the bunch and just about makes the junction. Clancy clearly satisfied that that was not going to be the move of the night, and Clancy is rejoined, and much to Joey Walker's consternation, I think he had a little look around to discover that that was the end of the move. I suspect that those riders won't have been that surprised. There wasn't full cooperation in there, nothing like the intensity there had been in the early laps. Worth pointing out though that groups are already getting dropped, and we've even picked up a few lap riders already.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing how these guys make this look so easy. They're just so smooth, you know, and this is their bread and butter. This is what UK racing's all about. Circuit racing, short, fast, very explosive bike riders. As you can see now, the bunch is now starting to look at each other, so it's not going to be long. I would not be surprised if we see a big attack coming up on this climb next time round.
Bit of jockeying for position, that tactic that you mentioned of riders trying to pick the wave left or right as they work their way down to this next left-hander at the bottom of the course. This particularly intense, and the rider went wide there. I thought for a moment he might have come to grief, just picked up perhaps one of the bit of road markers. This Mould has gone for it.
Yeah, big tack by John Mould through the cobbles, using all the speed he can get before he hits the cobbles, because inevitably, due to it being really rough, you're going to slow down. So Mouldy there trying to get a big gap, and he's taking Alex Patton with him. It looks like Tom Stewart, One Pro Cycling, is trying to pull his way across, followed by Graham Briggs as well. So JLT Condor are all over us tonight, likewise Madison Genesis. They've not missed a move at all tonight so far.
Well, they've got the numbers, JLT Condor, and you suspect that the message from John Herity was something along the lines of a man in every move, and so far that's working out. Ed Clancy is replaced by John Mould up front, and it is the inevitable figure of Bike Channel Canyon's Harry Tanfield that goes to the front. He's going to try and ride across this gap. He's been given a little bit of daylight, and that could be ideal for Bike Channel Canyon if they manage to get a man up front with JLT Condor, with Madison Genesis. John Mould and Alex Petton race free at the moment.
Straight away, aware of the danger, Christian House, the dude is all over it. You'll see he'll be probably the first rider in. There you go, on the front of the bunch. Quickly followed there by, looks like Matt Cronshaw from Madison Genesis, and again young George Wood. He's really holding a good position after obviously making all those efforts in the breakaway, so that shows that George Wood is actually on pretty good form tonight. Yeah,
very impressive stuff, and impressive too indeed from Alex Patton. He was in that move too, and had no difficulty going with the next serious separation from the pack as John Mould goes to the front for JLT Condor. Alex Patton has a little look around, perhaps I wonder if he's feeling full of fight at the moment, or whether he's just wondering whether there's a group coming across. One Pro missed that one once more. Do they put a rider into the counter, or do they think about chasing it?
This is not the first time to be caught on the back foot tonight. It's I think that's George Harper on the front now for One Pro Cycling, and you know they're going to have to get their stuff together, because that's twice they've now missed a move, and they cannot continue like that. They have to be more proactive. They don't have a designated sprinter tonight. They have to be the attacking force, and there we go.
Well, as anticipated, and you did mention it, and here it comes, and wait till you hear the cheer as Tom Pidcock starts to put the cat amongst the pigeons. He likes the look of that one. Patton goes clear, at least a couple of bike lengths clear of that group, and look at this diminutive figure, but what an engine, and the way he lights up the crowd and gets them banging the boards. Tom Pidcock is coming across the gap. Who's going to respond to that?
It looks like nobody's managed to respond directly to it. I think Tom Stewart was giving it all he could to get across, but look, Pidcock straight across that gap in a matter of meters. That just shows you the talent this young guy has. It is so impressive to watch, and he came across that gap like a bullet out of a gun. And you look at his face, he's not even breathing, you know, at all. It's so impressive.
Well, some riders looking for their second wind, and he hasn't even started breathing, has he? As Harry Tanfield goes to the front, lights the blue touch paper as the man from Bike Channel Canyon has a little look over his shoulder, sees John Mould, Alex Patton, and tucked in there. Just a little quick recovery from that effort, but Tom Pidcock is very shortly going to make a contribution, and behind, well, they're starting to relay at the front, because that is a dangerous move.
Yeah, this has ignited the whole of the race. We're now roughly halfway through now, as we just almost hit 30 minutes. This is when people start getting tired and they start making mistakes. We can now see the bunch itself, it's all over the road. No one wants to chase. One Pro Cycling need to be on this, because if this disappears, there's no bringing it back. This is a really, really strong group.
Difficult moment now for the One Pro Cycling team, one of the leading squads in British cycling. They've got the numbers here, but have they got the riders that are going to make it across into that move? And how do they do? Do they chase, or do they try and counter? Do they try and punch clear and get away from the other riders, or do they just put riders on the front, closing that one down?
Well, there are two trains of thought, as we see again Joey Walkie here trying to come across, followed by One Pro Cycling's George Harper. Two trains of thought. You can get your whole team on the front, or you start launching attacks to maintain the speed in the bunch, because sometimes if you've not got the numbers, especially around a bit, it's really hard to get organised quickly in a criterium. If you don't have them around, you just have to start launching bombs and start hitting them, because that's the only way you're going to keep the momentum in the bunch.
Well, meanwhile, Harry Tanfield's on the front and doing long turns indeed. Perhaps he's seen the way that Katie Archibald raced the women's race and raced it to glory and took the gold medal. This one looks like it could well be closed up, but I think this one's done a lot of damage in that group behind, even if it does come back together again, as it looks and indeed is inevitable. As Joey Walker makes the junction, he is in turn joined by the remainder of the bunch, which is starting to thin out already.
Yeah, there's little splits appearing every time we come up the home straight. What we've got to remember is that we're climbing quite a decent bit of elevation on a really rough road, and that will sap your strength every single lap. The other thing is as well, when you hit this home straight, usually at the top of a climb you would be able to accelerate a little bit and use the smoothness of the road. You don't have that opportunity, but now it looks like there's a lot of attack on the right hand side by JLT Condor. Is that Matt Gibson?
Gibson goes, and Gibson, we've been waiting for that one because he has been the dominant force in the National Circuit Series so far. A couple of second place finishes already in that, and Matt Gibson is looking for the big win, and it would be the biggest win of all, wouldn't it, if he took the national championship tonight. But he hasn't got a whole lot of daylight as Tobin Horton is starting to close this one down. Christian House is there for One Pro, so One Pro is starting to put riders into the attacks rather than getting them into defensive mode. Well to the fore as well is Tom Pidcock. He stayed up there. Tanfield as well in the dark blue colours of the sky blue colours, you might say, of the Bi-Channel Canyon squad, is sitting in 4th or 5th wheel. But Gibson continues to plough on. He's making it hard for Horton to close the gap.
Yeah, he's keeping the pressure on here big time. You can start to see just little gaps appearing now in the bunch here as it's now forming that one line we spoke about earlier. Everyone's seeking for that little bit of respite on that small, narrow piece of smooth tarmac. And this is where the damage is done. If you see, this is what's going to happen now. Gibson's made that big an effort up the climb. He's potentially gassed himself a little bit, and now everyone's starting to look at each other. But again, on the back, the light blue figure of...
He's just going again. I just noticed flashing past, and I think we have the attack from Tom Pidcock as he goes, and Gibson is able to respond, and that's good sign for Matt Gibson, that after that enormous sustained effort from Gibson, what a demonstration that was on how to attack as if you really mean it, and sustain the attack and just see what damage you've done behind. Well, what damage you've done behind is pretty significant indeed. Pidcock goes, and that is Gibson that immediately closes it down. Horton, well, he's going to have to grind his way across the gap, and House is finding it a little bit difficult to close that one. I think that's just a signal of the sheer quality and the sheer ability of Tom Pidcock, and also a sign indeed that Matt Gibson is a man on great form.
Yes, absolutely, but the dude, Christian House, is not going to give up with it, and that's George Wood has crashed, and unfortunately it looks like his race is over. That's going to be a massive... Nope, no laps out, no assistance from the side, and it's happened on the wrong side of the circuit to get a spare bike, so that's hugely unfortunate for George Wood after showing so much promise at the start of the race. Yeah,
he's been on great form, so disappointment for the Richardson's Trek Racing Team rider, George Wood, who unfortunately is not going to be able to close a gap the way things are going at the moment. Pidcock is making it really, really difficult for the others. He goes again on this drag, and it just seems to be something that well, he's enjoying himself at the moment. Horton closes it, but has to hunch low over the bars and making a really intense effort to get there.
Yeah, he's not messing around, and it's so exciting to see a young lad of his age willing to take it to some of the most prominent professionals in British cycling. Seeing himself and Matt Gibson, these are the riders of the future, as well as Harry Tanfield. These are the guys we're going to talk about for the next 10 years in this style of racing. This is so impressive to see, and now they're starting to look at each other, but Harry Tanfield is back on the front, maintaining the pressure. It looks like this gap has actually grown as well, Declan. We've now got 12 laps to go.
Interesting moment. Down to the final 12 laps. Harry Tanfield on the front. Tobin Horton is finding that he's got to close a little bit of a gap. Good moment really for Madison Genesis. They've got two riders in there because Alex Patton, who's been very prominent in the early stages, has also made it into this move. But this move is not yet totally unified, is it? Because Harry Tanfield's full of fight. Tom Pidcock certainly is. But is this group behind? Are they full of fight, and have they got enough ability and power to close that gap?
At this point, I would say no. The gap looks like it's actually gone out quite a distance here, and this could be the most distance we've seen between breaks. And obviously Madison Genesis have got two. What really has to happen here? They have to sit up, they have to get organised, and the quicker they do that, the quicker they're going to establish this gap. There's an awful lot of looking over shoulders right now, which is understandable. It's the national championship, there's a lot on the line, but they have to get organised. And the great thing for Madison Genesis in here, you've got Horton, who is an out-and-out sprinter and a real good puncher, but Alex Patton, he is one of the strongest guys in this race, and again, of the same mould as Harry Tanfield. Super strong, but you can see now in the front, One Pro Cycling, Madison Genesis, JLT Condor, not interested. They're just covering the moves, slowing the bunch and controlling it. It's now a swarm of Madison Genesis at the front.
They're on the front, but they're not chasing.
No, not at all, not at all. And they're just basically going to fill the road and try and let this start. It's a perfect scenario for them. They've got a sprinter who can win from the group, but they've also got Alex who can win alone. So it's really, really exciting, this move.
Well, we got a shake of the head from Matthew Gibson last time that he was on the front, and he had Harry Tanfield on his tail, and he was shaking the head and flicking the elbows if, come on, you got to come through. Harry Tanfield is never far from the front. He's on the front, drilling it at the moment, and making Tobin Horton of Madison Genesis really grimace. But Gibson has gone to the back, and Gibson looks in good form.
Yeah, definitely. I think he was just going through a small rough patch there after making, obviously, the main selection which this Breakaways came from. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of laps, because I'm not too sure if John Hennity has got the confidence that Gibson can finish it from this group, because you never ride in a group where you cannot win from. All you're doing, if you're going to ride with that group, is you're taking The best sprinter closer to the finish, and it actually looks like now there's been a slight move off the front, but again marked by Madison Genesis and swiftly followed again by Ed Clancy.
Well, is that Walker that had ventured forth from the group, trying to make the junction, disappointed perhaps that having been involved in so much of the early action, found himself distanced, and now the gap is starting to go in the wrong direction. The traffic lights indicating, I think, the first time we've really noticed them, that just the dusk is falling, and well, there's plenty of light for the racers, no question that's going to be a difficulty, that this is going to turn into a nocturne, but well, it's a bit darker than it was. Tom Pidcock rolls off the front, leaves it up to Horton.
Yeah, so now we have finally got organised. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the next 4 or 5 laps, because every lap we are getting closer and closer to the finish. When we get to 3 to 4 laps out, that's when the tactics start coming into play, and we can see now that Ali Slater, along with I think Connor Swift, the gap's currently hanging just over 10 seconds. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on the climb this time, because there's still people missing out here.
So where's the next attack coming from? I haven't seen too much of Pidcock lately, have we? As perhaps he's just thinking about it, and Pidcock at the back of the group, but albeit briefly, I can assure you.
Yeah, that gap has definitely grown, and they are out of sight. This is really, really important, quite a pivotal moment in this race. This break itself could go all the way to the end, as we can see 10 laps coming up. So not only is it going to get tactical at the front with this breakaway, it's also going to get tactical at the back in the bunch, because who's going to win from here? My money right now is on Tom Pidcock.
Okay, get your bets down, because Tom Pidcock's looking very good. Jimmy Mack has called it, former champion, he knows about this one. There's some significant talent in there. Alex Patton has been well to the fore. He scrolls through that left-hander, hunched low over the bars. He's a big rider, but he gets the centre of gravity as low as possible. Madison Genesis have the numbers in here. They're the only team with more than one rider. Plenty of teams represented. Harry Tanfield in that distinctive and familiar arms drooped over the bars, over the tops, as he goes to the right-hand side of the road and leaves it up to Patton to close the gap. Tanfield has just put the cat among the pigeons here a little bit, as Matt Gibson at the back for JLT Condor. How is he going to play it? They have the numbers behind, but will JLT Condor back Matt Gibson to finish this one off? Gibson has a little look over his shoulder to see if the bunch are coming up behind. At the moment, they're very much out of sight, but are they out of mind?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that about Matt Gibson, because the next time we come up through the start finish here, I'm going to be having a good look in the pits, because John Herity is always very animated in criteriums. He'll be trying to pass on information to Matt, so it's going to be interesting to see what the reactions are in the pits. Not only that, all the other team managers there are going to be trying to be passing information on, so it's going to be quite interesting to get a snapshot of the action in the pit lane as we go on the home straight this time.
Yeah, we watch with interest to see just how the team directors are going to play this one. 12 seconds the gap last lap round, it was 12 seconds the previous lap, so holding steady and coming up to complete another lap. This will be 9 to go now, as Harry Tanfield of Bike Channel Canyon leads Alex Patton.
Yeah, I can see John Herity gesticulating to Matt Gibson to sit on the back here, so he's not got 100% confidence in Matt. He's obviously outnumbered here as well, which all the other teams are as well, because Madison Jensen have the 2 riders here. Now, if Matt starts sitting on, this could potentially be the end of this breakaway, because they're not going to let him do it. Like we've seen a few weeks ago, we had 3 JLT Condor riders in a breakaway with Harry Tanfield. There's no chance that every single one of these riders is going to let Matt Gibson get a free ride even remotely anywhere near the finish. But all the while, young Tom Pidcock has still not hit the win for the last 2 or 3 laps. He's playing a very wily game, a very experienced shoulder. It's head on really young shoulders, so it's exciting to see what's going to happen from this.
Yeah, no lack of confidence. He knows how to play it, and well, he goes to the front, just as we say it. It is indeed Tom Pidcock on the front, but Matt Gibson is the bus conductor at the back, as he just takes a swig from his bidon. Gibson, how frustrating will it be for him that that request has come from John Herity?
It's real. It's John. John knows what he's doing, you know. And the thing is, we go back to look at Pidcock. Pidcock's sneaky there, though. He went to the front, but on the downhill tailwind section, not in the uphill headwind section, which, you know, it looks like you're doing work, but in theory, you're not really doing anything. So again, a massive showing of great experience from such a young rider. Going back to Gibson, though, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Matt's obviously just want to tap through here. He's not following through. You see right now he's posturing to let Alex Patton back in the line. Alex obviously had a little look in his eyes, then he's like, yeah, right, okay, mate, let's see what's going to happen here.
Well, that surely can't be allowed to happen for too much longer. You sense that the bubble is going to burst in this one very shortly, because riders are starting to change their modus operandi, change the way that they're playing it. Pidcock on the back, Gibson just in front. They're not contributing to the effort at the moment.
You could just also see Tim Elvison there, just willing Harry Tanfield. Tim Elvison's the director of Direct Sport Teeth of Bike Channel Canyon. He was just gesticulating to, if I put my teeth back in, he was just gesticulating to Harry Tanfield to keep it rolling, keep it rolling. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, as we can now actually see two riders at the back. If they came across, is that Graham Briggs? Briggs has came across, bringing Matt Cronshaw, but it looks like Cronshaw may have potentially had a little bit of cramp there, looking on that back straight. That is some ride by Graham Briggs. It just shows you the form he's on. So this is absolutely going to set the cat amongst the pigeons, and that is why John Herity told Matt Gibson to sit on.
Because Graham Briggs, the former champion, has got himself into position, and now it is a very, very different tactical proposition. I was about to say there are three riders for the Madison Genesis squad, but as you mentioned, Matt Cronshaw is suffering here. These had to make a huge effort to go across that gap, and he hasn't quite made it. And these can be the toughest meters of all, the last 15 or 20.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all dependent on how quickly they take this corner. Matt himself is a fantastic bike handler, not adverse to taking a few risks, so you'll see the speed he goes round here. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets on just as we hit the cobble section, but has it taken too much out of him by the time he gets there?
So Cronshaw, as you say, lays the bike over and tries to gain as much as he possibly can and get up onto the tail of Graham Briggs. Briggs himself trying to recover after what has been an immense effort to race across the gap, and they have really emptied to get in position. So Madison Genesis have got a third rider in there. Cronshaw, can he be a contributor here? Because Madison Genesis have two riders for JLT Condor, as former champion Graham Briggs has joined his teammate Matt Gibson. Gibson now will contribute.
Yeah, definitely. He's going to ride on the front straight away, keep the pressure on, and unfortunately for Matt Cronshaw, trying to get on the back, his teammate Tobin Horton wasn't aware he was there, and he was actually drilling it at the front, so not a great help to Matt Cronshaw getting on, but he's on now. Just needs a lap or two to get his breath back, and then we'll see what happens to this. But it's really coming down to crunch time as we hit 7 laps to go.
Well, Tom Pidcock is a solo rider. He's a teenager, and he's playing a canny game here, just as a rider maybe, well,
I think he's going to do nothing now. He doesn't have to do anything here. He's a young rider. He's not one of the established professional teams. He can sit there, you know. And to be honest with you, I don't really think, even if they started getting a little bit dirty with the taxes and take him at the back, they could do much about it, because I think he's sharper. If you can see here, Cronshaw slightly losing the wheel on the corner, but right away Pidcock straight on the wheel, just waiting to see if the gap opens, and he's ready to jump around the back of Matt Cronshaw if he has to.
Well, is that Cronshaw taking him out the back, or is that Cronshaw still struggling to recover after what was an immense effort? It could be either, couldn't it?
I think potentially the latter, but you could see just by the look in Tom Pidcock's face there, as he looked into straight down the camera, not a single bit of stress on that young lad's face. It's so impressive to watch this.
Coming down towards the closing stages of the National Circuit Race Championships. This is the important lead group. There are all the serious teams involved. Anxiety from Harry Tanfield there. He's anxious. I think he's a bit worried that there isn't quite the cooperation in this group that there needs to be.
Yeah, not only that, but he's also outnumbered. So really the onus is not actually on Harry to ride here, as it is not the same situation for number 66 Tom Pidcock. They don't actually have to be pushing the pressure on here. It's the teams with the numbers. So Madison Genesis, JLT Condor, they are the guys who now have to start pushing this.
That's not Tanfield's way, though. He knows one way, and that's to go to the front, preferably off the front, and just go for glory from as far out as possible. He just is just such a willing worker, is just such an honest racer. It doesn't always work out, though. That's the way it works in cycling. Will it work for him tonight? Tobin Horton out of the saddle and up and across the finish line to complete another lap. 6 laps remaining now. We're scrolling down the laps as there's just 6 laps of this 1.4 kilometre circuit remaining. Riders looking around and riders starting to come across. Could this be Walker?
Yeah, it looks like Joey Walker, definitely. And just we can see here Raleigh, who've got a pretty depleted team here tonight. There's only 3 riders, followed by Chris Opie from Bike Channel Canyon. He's just floating at the front, just seeing what's happening. Now gesticulating to each other. I'm not going to chase. You going to chase? it's become one of those games now, Declan.
Well, nothing like the cooperation that's required if they're going to close this one down, because the riders up front, not absolutely full bore at the moment, but still enough intensity in the effort, especially when the likes of Harry Tanfield goes to the front and he grinds that big gear and makes Alex Patton and the rest suffer. And those riders, well, they're a little bit concerned, I think, perhaps that this man is coming across the gap. Joey Walker, who's himself was frustrated after being in a couple of the early moves, missed out on the big one. Well, now he's seen his opportunity to escape the clutches of the bunch and now wants to race across and emulate his father, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. He's in no man's land right now, but he has to really commit to this. But the best thing, if I was asked to describe Harry Tanfield, I would say one thing. He's got two speeds. Flat out or stop. There's nothing in between with Harry Tanfield, and it's always 100% commitment here. As you can see, he's doing an awful lot of work, and I hope this does not come back to bite him towards the finish.
Well, the 22-year-old from Great Ayton in Yorkshire is putting the hammer down because he doesn't want Joey Walker to get on. Well, Walker's going to make it. He's just about there, and that was a supreme effort. He's just added another rider, and looks as if JLT Condor want to try and put another rider in there as well.
Yeah, just previously on the last lap after the home straight in the downhill section, we've seen that John Mould had got ahead of one of his teammates, Ali Slater, and actually putting a little attack along that bottom section. And now it looks like Mould is going to come across, so now the pressure is definitely on JLT Condor and Madison Genesis to push this group on. We're now getting to the real thick end of this race now, and I'm pretty sure there's Graham Briggs having a big attack on the right hand. Oh, nope. Cat and mouse has begun. Yeah, it certainly has. Graham Briggs looked to attack just as another one of his teammates made it in there, and things have changed a little bit. Christian House for the One Pro team is probably feeling a little bit isolated, a little bit vulnerable. There are a number of lone raiders have made it in there. Looks as if the bunch are about to rejoin. You can also see another Madison Genesis. This is going to be a really tight finish now. I've got a feeling this is going to come back together and end up being a bunch sprint, because right now the break they are not working together, and what's happening is riders are popping off the front of the bunch and they're closing that gap. The momentum is maintaining in the bunch, which is bringing everyone back together. So it's going to be interesting this next few laps. If we can see here, it's almost all back together. Pretty much back together. I think we can describe that as the bunch arrives across just in time for another big attack from John Mould. And Mould goes, and Madison Genesis have been involved in so much tonight, timed everything well. JLT Condor rarely been missing, if ever, from any of the attacks, and the bunch spreads wide, so this could be a big opportunity. Yeah, it's a big move there by Mould, followed quickly by Matt Holmes with that distinctive left elbow support on his arm. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here, because Matt against Mould in a sprint finish, Matt would have to leave John behind, but it's going to be interesting. At the back, it looks like is that Jacob Hennessy chasing on? Well, he's one of the riders that's been riding well this year, but Jacob Hennessy hasn't been involved in the front end of the action so far tonight. Pidcock's not too far from the front either, is he? And Pidcock, I think, perhaps sees his opportunity. Tobin Horton continues to grimace, but continues to have the strength to stay well to the fore. Yeah, it's getting really interesting now. Everyone's full gas. We're now at the thick end of this race. 50 minutes gone. This is now getting into the last 10 minutes of the race, and this is where the difference counts. We've got 4 laps to go now. It's now going to get extremely tactical. A lot of teams now will be having 2 options. We go for the lead out, or we're going to start attacking, and it's going to be interesting to see who sets the stall out first here, Declan. That was Jordan Peacock from the Wellingborough Cycles racing team. Superb effort to get involved in amongst the big teams and show his strength and his ability. For all that, though, there is a bit of a reset. Truce called, and they'll go again. Battle will be rejoined. Who is going to launch the next attack? Won't be far away from happening. How many riders at this point are resigned to the fact, are working their tactics around the inevitability of a sprint finish at this moment? Are Madison Genesis playing for that? I would say definitely. They've set the stall out pretty early, and to be honest with you, 4 laps out on a course like this, at this point in the way the race is being ridden, for my money, it's a little bit too early. But right away in 4th place, the small diminutive figure of Mr. Tom Pidcock. Well, Tom Pidcock is surely not going to be of a mind to go down to a bunch sprint and test out his sprinting ability. Who knows? You wouldn't entirely bet against him. He hasn't entirely explored his full arsenal of talent. He's a young man, though, with enormous talent, enormous potential, and surely will make a future contribution in this event before the very end, as the riders through that left-hander back up onto the
onto the drag. It is the Madison Genesis squad putting riders to the fore as one pro in the familiar figure of Christian House. Well, it's been a long and storied career for the Kent rider, and Christian House would like to crown his career with a national circuit race title.
Yeah, a little bit of daylight there between Matt Cronshaw and his teammate. As you see Tobin Horton just at the back there of this little group going clear. Now this is a crunch moment here, 3 laps to go. The bunch is splitting all over the place. There's gaps appearing left, right and centre here. It's going to be interesting because, just as I was about to say that, JLT Condor have now slid 2 guys into the back of that move, and it looks like Mould and Graham Briggs. But more importantly, you've got 4 or 5 riders from Madison Genesis, so they've got really good control of this race now.
They've got the numbers. The solo interloper, I was going to say, was Tom Pidcock, just as Harry Tanfield joins, and indeed the bunch is back together again. But if this is a bunch, it's a bunch in one long, thin line, and owning it at the front is a considerable advantage. Madison Genesis have the numbers at the front at the moment. Christian House making big efforts to stay in position with less than 3 laps remaining, though that is the position of maximum opportunity. And all these riders can say that they're in the bunch, but so few of them are now involved in the hunt for overall honours.
Yeah, I'm just looking down the line here trying to figure out who Madison Genesis are riding for, and it looks like they're putting their faith in Tobin Horton. He's got now a sweeper on the back of his wheel, Alex Patton, who'll be looking after his rear wheel, making sure he's got clear air to launch his sprint when it comes finished. But now we can see a big rush on the left hand side, the right hand side as we look at it from JLT Conver, with John Mould bringing up Graham Briggs.
All change. John Mould goes to the front. Briggs sitting in 3rd place with those yellow glasses. Those Dayglow yellow glasses, the familiar figure of the former champion Graham Briggs, who believes he can be champion again. An attack inevitably coming from One Pro Cycling, courtesy of Christian House. House perhaps not confident to go up against JLT Condor in the form that they're in. Indeed, Madison Genesis as well, massing towards the front. He's feeling a little bit vulnerable and just goes to the front, really only to tow the bunch along at pace. So how are they going to play it?
It's interesting now that One Pro Cycling have totally turned this race around now. They're all over the attacks now. Now we see everyone's getting tired. We come up to the top of the hill, everyone takes in some air and they look around. This is where a small move can just ghost off the front. But more importantly, Alex Patton coming back to the front. For Madison Genesis, we've got 2 laps to go, so less than 5 minutes of racing left here. It's going to be absolutely down to the wire.
Harry Tanfield puts himself into a position of maximum opportunity, well, albeit briefly, just as Madison Genesis take it up on the front. They put 3 riders in there, and now we start to see Tanfield is looking around. He's trying to pick out Chris Opie. He's wondering where he is, and he's coming up.
Yeah, Opie I could see just sliding up there on the downhill section behind his teammate Dexter Gardias. It's going to be interesting to see how they play it. They've obviously had all the cards on the table for Chris Opie tonight in a bunch sprint, so they need to get him there, and they need to get him there fast, because right now Madison Genesis are giving it full bore down this back straight. You're talking 60 odd k's an hour down here. It's super fast, slightly downhill, but also a small tailwind. So now you can see Harry Tanfield is just sitting in 5th place, just awaiting the arrival of a sprinter.
It's flat chat, it's all action, it's coming down to the closing stages of the National Circuit Race Championships. Looks at the moment like it's going to go to a sprint, but is there time for the late attack? Mould goes to the front, Briggs, his teammate, sits in 3rd place. JLT Condor are backing their diminutive Yorkshireman to double up on his title success. Madison Genesis are charging along on the front. Is this Patton that's trying to lead it out? Pidcock starting to make an appearance. We're coming towards the closing stages as Patton on the front, followed by Mould and Briggs own it.
Yeah, you can see it's getting really tough up here. A lot of teeth being shown now there by John Mould. He's the only rider left now to help support Graham Briggs and deliver him into this last lap. They need to be really careful of the timing here, because if we spoke all night about the timing of your acceleration down the back straight and the timing of the rush, you have to make sure you do it right, and when you do it 100% all the way to the line, and let and deliver Briggsy to that top section.
So, heading down the hill in one long line. And this is the final lap of the National Circuit Race Championships. Less than 1.4 kilometres. Madison Genesis own it on the front, courtesy of Alex Patton. Will they be able to set up and present Tobin Horton into position?
Yeah, it looks like there's going to be a big stall potentially down here as everyone starts to look at each other, and this is to the advantage of the riders at the back. You can see Connor Swift there making a big acceleration, but there's a massive gap now appearing, roughly about 1 or 2 seconds. I mean, 10 to 20 metres at this speed, at this point in the race. It's so important to be on the wheels, and you can see Chris Oakley there struggling to get himself forward as Connor Swift now absolutely lights this up for his team sprinter, Tobin Horton.
Connor Swift on the front, John Mould behind. Harry Tanfield has put himself into position to present Chris Opie if it's a potential. Tobin Horton sitting 4th or 5th wheel. Johnny McAvoy's trying to move out. Tom Pidcock is in position. Watch out for the light blue colours, as we've got a number of riders still believe. Championship stripes are on offer. Down into the fastest and the perhaps most technical and difficult corner on the course. Charging up the hill, here comes Pidcock on the left hand side. We wait to see as the shot changes. Tom Pidcock goes for glory. The young junior is really putting it up as John Mould struggles to stay in the wheel. Harry Tanfield sitting in 3rd place at the moment. Tobin Horton and Graham Briggs are well to the fore as well. Through the final right-hander, into the left-hander. The crowd cheer, the crowd roar. Can Tom Pidcock possibly bring this home? He's first around the final bend. Through into the final 150 metres. Can anyone possibly get round this young junior? Pidcock leads it home. Pidcock wins the National Circuit Race Championship. There's nothing to stop him. Extraordinary result, extraordinary athletic ability, and Tom Pidcock, as you called it throughout the day, Jimmy, it really was an amazing performance as Tom Pidcock takes the glory, takes the stripes, and he will celebrate yet another title and what is an increasing collection of amazing results for a young rider that really is going places.
One word: wow. We could see he was in good position all night, on the front foot, in the breakaways, looking after himself, making sure he was always in the right place. But that was extraordinary, Declan. That was just a fantastic move up the inside in the bottom corner, and full commitment all the way to the top of the hill. It's one of those finishes where if you're strong enough to maintain it, you're going to win. If you show a slight bit of weakness, which this young man did not tonight, you've got the jersey.
But Jimmy, you did actually call it, and you called it after about 5 minutes of the race, that it was just steep enough and just difficult enough to bring it back to a rider of this young man's ability. He's a small, diminutive figure, but he is a pocket rocket, and with just that little bit of incline, it really suited his ability.
Yeah, absolutely, and it suits his physical abilities. He's not world cyclocross champion for nothing. You know, it's very, very similar effort. Okay, there's a lot of mud and it's off-road, but it's very, very similar in its intensity. And you've seen today that Pidcock, British Criterium champion now, this stands him in great stead going forward to his cyclocross season.
Well, let's get a look at it again. We could see the attack happening from the bottom of the hill. The minute they hit the cobbles, Pidcock was already in the lead and putting the cat very much among the pigeons as Harry Tanfield found himself able to get round Jonathan Mould. Mould in 2nd place as they emerged from the final corner. Tanfield had the strength and the quality to get up for 2nd, but the man with the arms in the air, Tom Pidcock.
They had no answer to it, did they? I mean, from that bottom corner, he was fully committed, and as you can see here, as he just crossed the line in the slow-mo, it's going to be interesting to see how it's very, very close there for 2nd and 3rd. And hats off to Harry Tanfield for getting round John Mould in that home straight. That just shows you how strong Tanfield was tonight. He was really committed to the breakaway, but still there, more importantly, at the end for that bunch kick.
Well, it's a final medal winning performance for Harry Tanfield. Jonathan Mould up for 3rd. Tobin Horton just missing out in a medal for Madison Genesis in a fine 4th place. Former champion Graham Briggs in 5th. McAvoy, Stuart Walker, Dexter Graham and Will Fox rounding out the top 10. Those are the unofficial results as we have them at the moment. But I can assure you there's no doubt about the man who was won the champion. We'll be heading to the podium very shortly. We'll be collecting the stripes, collecting the gold medal. Perhaps not collecting the champagne because he's a bit too young for it.
I think actually going through my history, just looking at my notes there, I think he may be potentially the youngest winner of the senior under-23 championship. The only rider that I can think of previously who was close to this age would have been Mark Cavendish. Not done much since then, obviously, but Cav won Otley when he was just still an under-23, so I think Pidcock has made quite a bit of history tonight.
He is a young man going places. When does the big professional contract come calling? We understand that he's already negotiating with some very big teams.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure it has been officially announced yet, but I think he's been in big talks with Sven Nys from Telenet Fidea Trek team over in Belgium. And, you know, if Sven Nys comes chapping out your door, you're definitely doing something right. But It's amazing to see the talent this young rider has, and you can now see that riders from cyclocross are now transferring across. A prime example, riders in the pro peloton, Zdeněk Štibar, he can do everything.
His future certainly for the short term with the Telene Fidea squad in the cyclocross, but one imagines that the road is ultimately somewhere he might end up.
Yeah, I think the most important thing for Tom's career is he's got lots of choices, you know, and it's great to be in that situation. It's just make sure that he gets directed in the right way and has the right kind of mentorship around about him. But I'm very, very sure he's got some good people around about him. But, you know, tonight was exceptional. Okay, I did call it quite early. I was a bit brash and a bit out there with that, but just looking at his physicality, the way in which he looked so smooth and so relaxed when he was surrounded by such experienced professionals from the UK, guys who, as I've said, this is their bread and butter. These guys do this week in, week out, but to see Pidcock just slide straight in there, no nerves, totally chilled, I mean, it was so impressive. I just can't say how impressive it was.
Here's your confirmation of the medal winners in the 2017 National Circuit Race Championships. Tom Pidcock gets up to take the glory for the PH Mass Paul Milnes Oldfield ERT squad. Harry Tanfield in second for Bike Channel Canyon and bronze medal winner. For JLT Condor, they had the numbers. They eventually produced a bronze medal winning performance from Jonathan Mould.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's great to see the mixture of teams there as well. You know, obviously Bike Channel Canyon and JLT Condor, they took the race to the race. They were always on the attack, always present at the front, and it's just great to see the action getting some reward from that. Feel a bit sorry for Harry Tanfield having been in the thick of the action for the majority of the night, but then slide into second. You know, it's probably the worst place you can finish after fourth, but here we see the finish again. It's an absolutely electric finish there by Pidcock. He's looking under his elbows. It just shows the experience of the young lad. He's only a junior, but I tell you what, his future is hugely bright.
He's only 17. He doesn't. He's not entitled to drink that champagne for another 11 days, actually, which just gives you an indication of just what an immense talent he is. He's not fully formed as an athlete yet.
No, but I'm sure he can put that champagne in the fridge until 2 weeks' time. But yeah, and it's great to see here the respect shown by the established British pros. That's Tobin Horton there from Madison Genesis. He knows what it means to win these races, and a very well established criterium rider in his own right, just showing due diligence and respect for what Tom has achieved tonight.
Yes, I'm sure in years to come there's every chance that Tobin Horton himself, a very accomplished rider who's had a wonderful career, will be saying, well, I raced in the same bunch as Tom Pidcock. He prevented me from winning a national medal.
Yeah, I think that will be forever etched in a lot of riders' minds over the next stages of their career. But no, it's just so enlightening as well, and it's great to see a rider come from, you know, a little known discipline within the sport of cycling, of cyclocross. You know, Tom's been around for a few years, obviously came to total fruition recently this last 12 months with winning not only the World Cyclocross Championships at junior level, but also winning Paris-Roubaix. You could not find two different events. One lasts an hour, the other lasts several hundred kilometres. So it's great to see the strength and depth, but it just shows you he is so multifaceted and he can pretty much do what he wants. Is he a future Peter Sagan? Potentially.
Well, he is part of the long and storied history of successful Yorkshire cyclists. The man from Leeds, he's a young man, isn't he? Just 17 years of age, Tom Pidcock, part of the Great Britain Junior Academy, and led a 1-2-3 finish for Britain in the World Cyclocross Championships earlier this year. Also the European Cyclocross champion. And a man with a big future on the sport who's heading to the podium very shortly.
Yeah, I think he's potentially trying to explain why he can't drink that champagne at the back of the podium, which is, you know, never a nice situation for the winner of a bike race to have to explain. But no, absolutely, it's going to be fantastic just to see the emotion in his face.
Maybe they're showing him the correct technique for popping the cork and for spraying. Yeah,
I'm sure it's something he'll have plenty of practice with in the future, that's for sure.
Well, indeed.
But no, I think the other thing as well tonight which helped is, I mean, the racing's been fantastic all night. Fortunately for the men, there's not been any rain, which could have really turned this race on its head, especially for the conditions on these cobble sections. As we've seen in the women's race, it did play a little bit into play with a little bit of sliding around, especially for eventual winner Katie Archibald. But tonight, thankfully, the gods have looked after us and we've not had that much rain.
Been riding his bike since he was 3, started racing when he was 7.
Almost makes you sick, doesn't it?
Really? He already understands quite a lot about racing at this point, doesn't he? I mean, there's little to teach this young man at this point. He's a lot to learn, but not. He's already learned a lot, and he's bringing to it an amazing talent.
Yeah, he's a very, very impressive, and it's going to be interesting to see, you know, just the look on his face, and here's to see this finish again. It is just so strong. You got to remember, he took this up at the bottom of the climb. He hit the cobbles, full gas cad as much speed as he could, and you know what? The minute he got round that corner, he could smell the finish. He could smell that jersey, and he can't wait to see him get this medal round his neck. So well done. And you know, the way in which he played it, the timing of his attack up the inside on that last corner, it just belays a rider of so much more advancement than he is at that age.
Yeah, and light years between the first three across the line and the fourth place rider Tobin Horton. It really was quite a bit of daylight there between those riders. Not that there's a whole lot of daylight left at this moment in Sheffield, but suffice it to say, what little there is was separating those riders.
Well, that's the thing. You look at it as well. The riders like John Mould and Tobin Horton, they're not second-rate sprinters. They are winning, you know, top bike races from group and bunch sprints. It just shows you the difference. Now, Pidcock, younger, a little bit faster, not slowing down. It's sad to say it, but, you know, riders of Mould and Tobin's era, they're now, unfortunately, getting to that point in their careers where they're on that downward spiral just a little bit, not taking anything away from them. They're still astounding and ultimately greatly talented bike riders. But when you see a rider like Tom Pidcock do what he did tonight, I just can't say it enough. I'm so impressed.
Yeah, he has physical strength to accumulate, but he'll never have as many fast twitch muscle fibers as he has right now. He's as fast at pedaling probably as he'll ever be in his life, but just he's going to accumulate the strength to sit riding big gears for a long time, and that's coming to him. And
that's the scary thing, is that he's doing all this off of raw natural talent. Okay, he is well trained, he is professionally trained, and you know, to see what he did tonight, just the thought of him in 5-6 years time growing into being a fully fledged hairy man, it's going to be absolutely frightening, and I think he is going to dominate for years to come, especially in the UK, and it's going to be so exciting to see him come back and represent with that British Champions jersey, because it is so important in the UK to come back and wear that jersey. It just fills you with so much pride in him. I'm wishing them all the best for next year. Yeah,
he's got a few jerseys to wear, hasn't he? He's got the National Circuit Race Champions jersey he's about to collect, and there's World Champion stripes as well in cyclocross. He'll never get to wear that European Cyclocross Champions jersey, will he?
No, unfortunately, I think it's a Peter Sagan situation where they ask him about the green jerseys, like, no, I like the World Championship one. So he's got the option. It'd be really interesting to see what his bedroom wall looks like with all these jerseys amassing. I think his parents are going to save an awful lot of money in paint and wallpaper potentially in the future.
He's still putting posters on the wall probably at his age, isn't he? He still lives with his parents, inevitably, at that age. The Bike Channel Canyon squad were well represented tonight, weren't they, by Harry Tanfield. Great work from Tanfield, so much work on the front as usual, and managed to still have the strength to put together a wonderful sprint finish at the end, and just about got over John Mould, but left himself with a little bit too much to do. Very difficult to get across two riders. And the presentations are being made as bronze medal is presented to the rider from JLT Condor. It's John Mould, 26-year-old from Newport in Wales, collects his bronze medal. Harry Tanfield, the 22-year-old from Great Ayton in Yorkshire, is the silver medal winner. There'll be opportunities aplenty in the future for Tanfield, and Tanfield again as well as a young and emerging talent in the sport.
Yeah, there we go. That's the moment every bike rider dreams of, being handed that white jersey with the stripes around the chest. It's such a proud moment, and to do it in the fashion which he did, it is immensely important moment in this young man's career.
Well, you know it well, James, and indeed you called it for this young man. He looks older than his years, doesn't he? Has the look of a chiselled, hardened, toughened road man, or indeed cyclocross racer. Winner of the Paris-Roubaix, Junior Paris-Roubaix this year, and so many riders have gone on from that success to glory in the sport. And there is the trophy for the winner of the Elite Men's National Circuit Race Championships. Collect the flowers, and then what are they going to do with the champagne? I mean, that's to me the biggest question of the night.
I can guarantee you John Mould is going to spray it in someone's face, that's for sure. It'll be interesting. The thing is, it's such a massive moment for Tom, you know, and you can kind of see him there. he's not incredibly overwhelmed either. He's been here, he's done this already, and on a bigger scale than this. But you know, again, it just underlies the experience of such a young man.
John Mould knows what to do. He's had a very successful year indeed on the circuits, and full explanations and instructions have been presented to Tom Pidcock. He is by some considerable margin the most diminutive figure on the podium, but packs a punch. He's a pocket rocket.
And there you go. That's the picture which he'll savour for the next 12 months. He now gets to wear that national champions jersey every single time he swings his leg over in a criterium worldwide. So massively proud moment for him, and it's going to be really, really exciting to see what he does with that jersey on his shoulders.
So these guys know what to do with
you can see Mould's got a little smirk on his face, just waiting.
He's got a head start inevitably, hasn't he, in the champagne spray?
Here we go. I think Tom's getting the instructions there. Here we
Oh,
go.
that's John Mould waits until someone else gets.
Good on them. Good lads.
That's the best quality Mum's champagne, I do believe. What a great men's championship that we've had. It's been an absolutely superb performance throughout from the entire field, topped by a champion's performance from one of the emerging greats, I think, of the sport. We're looking forward to going back to the studio for a little bit more analysis from myself, Declan Quigley, and James McCallum alongside. That's it for now.
Well, what an incredible evening of racing that turned out to be here in Sheffield. Congratulations to Katie Archbold and Tom Pidcock. They are now the new National Criterium champions. Now, don't forget, if you want to keep up to date on all things cycling, then head over to the British Cycling website. But from myself, Rebecca, Declan and James, and all of us here in Sheffield, thank you for watching. Good night.
He's going to have to do, but still a medal and national medal at that. So congratulations, I'm sure. Lots more to come this season. Put your hands together for John Mould in third place. So move across. Harry, the man I think who might come across as the hardest working man pretty much in that race one way or another. You seem to be on the front dragging, first of all, back to the brake, then going away in a brake and dragging that brake around. We saw lots of hand signals. Were you looking for help on the way around?
Not particularly. I mean, I just want to thank my team for the massive effort that they did at the start, and you know, we nearly lost it in the first half of the race with that brake going away, and we had no one there. And I nearly missed the start myself. By the time I got to the line, it was about 30 seconds, and then we went. I thought we were going to get gridded, but obviously not. So it took me 20 minutes to actually get into the race, and by that point, the brake had gone. Obviously, I wasn't in it, so.